Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1250 of the War News stream. Today we have very big news that Houthi forces have started a blockade of cargo ships in the Red Sea, and Ukrainian drones have destroyed yet even more Russian targets, and U.S. officials are preparing to escalate on Putin very quickly. And also, it is the Sunday night Fundraiser stream, of course, to raise more money to help those in Ukraine that are victims of the war. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we've been able to hear of significant developments in practically every single corner of the globe on another day of news. We have been able to hear that heavy battles have continued to rage in between the Thai-Cambodian border as the the Kingdom of Thailand's armed forces continue to move rapidly into the area, and we've also been able to confirm that both the Cambodians have been conducting incredibly heavy artillery strikes on the Thai side, not only wounding soldiers but also killing civilians as well. The Thai Air Force has also been conducting airstrikes on the Cambodian side, striking at key military bases and facilities of the Royal Cambodian Army, and once again attempting to drive the Royal Cambodian Army pretty much underground. At the exact same time, we have been able to hear that the Thai and Cambodian diplomatic delegations will be meeting in Malaysia at Kuala Lumpur tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and will be trying to discuss the first round of peace talks that may try and end the conflict that we are seeing at this moment right now. Outside of that information, we have been able to hear that the Yemeni Houthis have officially declared today that they are going to be closing the southern Red Sea completely in almost a endless naval blockade. This is a major development by the Yemeni Houthis, as they are stating that they will be targeting and destroying any vessels passing through the area that have any relation to the state of Israel or a Jewish person in any degree or extent, largely meaning that they can pretty much have a blank check due to that declaration to attack any commercial shipping passing through the area, because they will be able to try and find a way, somehow, some way, to be able to link the vessel to the state of Israel and to be able to attack it and sink it based off of their current casus belli that was stated just earlier today. This is coming on the heels of the President of the United States openly stating that the United States of America will not allow the Islamic Republic of Iran to continue with nuclear enrichment of refined uranium products. We have been able to hear that the President of the United States has shown great disdain for the statements by the Iranian Foreign Ministry and the Iranian Foreign Government following on the heels of the 12-day war and Operation Midnight Hammer, and is making it more so evidently clear that they will not be allowing under any circumstances the Islamic Republic of Iran to continue towards nuclear weaponization. We have also been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran has expelled hundreds of thousands of Afghans from the country, believing that the Afghans are actually responsible for the failures during the 12-day war, as they are believed to be Israeli and American informants as a whole. Outside of that, we also were able to hear that the Israelis are conducting some sort of a small helicopter mission or a rotary wing airborne mission to As-Suwaida at the moment, while Hezbollah is preparing for future offensives against the Israelis, and UN humanitarian convoys were allowed into the Gaza Strip once more. We have also been able to hear, in extension of the Ukraine war, that the President of the United States has made it incredibly clear through the Secretary of State and other government officials today that there is no believed possibility of achieving a peace in Ukraine with the Russian Federation. And for this reason, it's actually believed that sanctions may be implemented even further than the 50-day deadline, which we've been hearing of on a near day-to-day basis. It also appears that at the exact same time, the Federal Republic of Germany has announced that they will be conducting a lending, or more so a borrowing, of hundreds of billions of US dollars worth to be able to build up their armed forces, and not only that, supply the state of Ukraine through Germany's armed industries such as Rheinmetall and Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann. We have also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted significant attacks on major Russian logistics structures throughout the entirety of the southern Caucasus mountain region and the Russian Don, attempting to knock out one of Russia's most vital arteries of support to their warring campaigns inside of the Ukrainian front line. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been able to hold their front lines today throughout most of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, while we've also been able to hear that continuous Ukrainian counterattacks are weakening and jeopardizing the Russian position in the area of the Sumy Oblast. We have a particularly large amount of news today. Also, by the way, one bonus piece of news: a Chinese icebreaker was found within American exclusive economic zone waters today off the coast of Alaska, only 130 miles away from the coast. And we also were able to hear that the United States is no longer recognizing Venezuela as a legitimate government or state. Also, North Korea is going to be sending more troops to Russia to help out with the war effort. Beside all of those little pieces of news, and we'll be getting into each and every single one of them in great detail throughout the night, we have had another massive day of news coverage from what we've been able to see over just the past few hours alone. And moving on into the major news that we have been able to see over the course of the past 24 hours, that is actually going to be moving us on into the Thailand-Cambodia region, as we have been able to hear that this war is continuing on with the same intensity and fervor that we've seen in prior days. As a matter of fact, it does appear that this war has become, even if it remains contained a border war and ceasefire is achieved tomorrow, one of the deadliest within this region for the past 45 years. We actually were able to get that confirmation officially today based off of published casualty reports that have come from both sides. The 2025 Thai-Cambodian border conflict, also known as the 7-11 War, is the deadliest since the 1980s, surpassing the 2008 to 2011 clashes in deaths, injuries, and displacements over the course of just less than a week's worth of fighting. This has been one of the most, I guess you could say, active or violent wars that we've seen in Southeast Asia, largely since the collapse of the Pol Pot regime during the latter part of the 1980s. It's also become incredibly clear as a result of this, from the frontline fighting that we saw today, that both sides are still going at it up until the final hour, if a ceasefire is even achieved inside of Kuala Lumpur tomorrow. We have been able to hear, speaking of that there appears that there may be a possible end in sight to this conflict, as the Secretary of State Marco Rubio did state today that Cambodia and Thailand are scheduled to begin high-level talks in Malaysia shortly in hopes of achieving an immediate ceasefire. State Department officials are on the ground in Malaysia to assist these peace efforts. Both the President of the United States and I remain engaged with our respective counterparts for each country and are monitoring the situation very closely. We want this conflict to end as soon as possible. From what we are generally understanding, there will be an attempt at peace talks tomorrow in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, but this does not mean that the war is guaranteed to be ending within 24 hours or less than that because of the peace talks. There is a chance that the peace talks in Malaysia could could end up in failure or stall, as the Cambodians and the Thai may not be able to find any common ground on the issues that actually led to this conflict, and for this reason, the conflict could continue on well beyond this point, as both the Cambodians and the Thai would seek to achieve their war goals and war aims that started this entire conflict just a few days ago. Not only that, we have been able to see on the front lines today that in terms of artillery fire and indirect fire support, it has actually markedly increased, at least in terms of video and picture evidence that we've been able to see, which is showing us that both armed forces are going at it as heavily as they were yesterday, and may even be firing at each other at a greater tempo today. We were able to see video clips spanning from the Surin area to the Ubon Ratchathani area in larger form, showing us most of the major actions that were being taken by both sides, particularly that of both sides' artillery and air forces, as we were able to see Cambodian BM-21 Grads firing a heavy amount of MLRS barrages into the Thai border regions in Surin in this clip right here. That's the end of that clip, but we also were able to see further actions as more MLRS batteries by the Cambodian army were moving towards the border in mass. This appears to be an entire battalion at minimum of MLRS units that were moving on their way from the deeper heart of Cambodia towards the northern border regions to prepare to increase the amount of rocket fire that the Cambodians are able to launch at Thai forces and at Thai civilians across the border, which we can see in this clip right here.
He said he likes these a lot. They look really nice. He likes the white walls on the sides, too. That's a nice touch.
He said the white trim is very clean, and on God, it's dripping for real, bussin'. But nevertheless, this is an entire, from what we can tell, RM-70 Vampire MLRS battalion that is on the move towards the front lines, and this is actually a significant, measurable portion of the RM-70 Vampires in service in Cambodia. This single battalion represents around 10% of all of the MLRSs that currently are based inside of Cambodia in the Royal Cambodian Army that are currently on their move towards the border. The fact that the Cambodians are continuing to move even more forces towards the border as the United States of America is continuing to push towards a ceasefire is showing us that, at least for the moment, the Cambodians may be going into tomorrow's talks with the idea or concept that those talks will fail and most likely not make it anywhere. But that is unlike our fundraiser, which is absolutely going ham at the moment. We've been able to get up to $700 raised for Razom for Ukraine, and I do want to once again mention and plug that fundraiser because it's an absolutely incredible one, helping to support and save the lives of Ukrainian citizens inside of the state of Ukraine, and not only that, help out the soldiery as well through the benefits and advantages that Razom for Ukraine is able to provide to the Ukrainian armed forces. We hope that everyone does support it tonight. We have a $2.5 thousand goal, and it does appear that we are getting closer and closer to reaching that fundraiser goal, even just in the opening minutes of the stream. But moving on back into the news that we have from inside of Cambodia and Thailand, we were able to see that Cambodia did hit and kill 2 civilians within the Thai border area today once again, as it does appear that a large amount of Thai MLRS barrages are being directed towards civilian areas, such as villages, throughout the entirety of Thailand. We've also been able to see that as well with any sort of misfires that have been made by the Cambodians into southern Laos, as we have been able to confirm that there has been a decent amount of Laotians that have also come under attack and have been wounded, as Cambodian artillery fire is also being directed against the smaller villages within the southern region of Laos near to the Thai border. This is showing us that once again, at least as far as Cambodian rocket artillery strategy is concerned, they are targeting and hitting any populated areas with civilians inside of them more so than the Thai armed forces themselves. This is something that is fairly common, at least for what we could call dictatorships to conduct as an action. We've seen this being conducted by the Russian Federation and many others throughout their conflicts, where they generally attempt to target the citizenry of a country more so the actual armed forces of a country, and that appears to once again be the case here. As far as that is concerned, that is largely an outright war crime, at least from the rules of war and the Geneva Convention that has been laid out over the course of pretty much the past 150 years, directly targeting civilians without any sort of a presence of armed forces even around the general vicinity would be considered a war crime. And we have seen that the Cambodians are pretty much the only ones at this point that we can record and prove have conducted war crimes against civilians inside of Thailand. We have not seen the same thing being conducted by the Royal Thai Army and the Royal Thai Armed Forces against the Cambodian citizenry. Nevertheless, we have been able to tell that the Thai Air Forces have also been hard at work as well today, as we were able to hear that F-16s of the Royal Thai Air Force were conducting several waves of precision strikes against artillery bases and military sites of the Cambodian army in the areas of Ta Quai and Ta Muin Thom on the disrupted border or disputed border between Cambodia and Thailand. We also were able to get a clip of one of these F-16s in action in this clip right here. We're going to be muting the music, but you can actually see the Thai F-16 just right up there. Not too far away, as a matter of fact. It's almost within reaching distance.
The F-16 looks good in pretty much any combat environment. It's just a good staple of a jet.
It's a great jet, a real jet, a long-lasting jet. And we could see a decent compilation of the F-16s in action near the border in this clip right here. But that's the end of that clip, still showing us a heavy amount of the use of the Royal Thai Air Force, at least in the current conflict so far. Moving further on down the border to the Sisaket region, we were also able to see more Cambodian MLRSs conducting their rocket barrages onto Thai positions and villages throughout the earlier part of the day.
Isn't it kind of wild how all the soldiers from all these different militaries warring around the world like whip their cell phones out to record their own stuff? Like it's kind of baffling to me.
It's kind of baffling, and it's also baffling that that's a major OPSEC violation and no one's getting on to them for doing that. The Ukrainians are the only country I know of that actually encourage their soldiers to film specific things, but it has to go through pretty much a censorship process to be able to be released to the public, so that way it doesn't violate any sort of operational security in the process. Everywhere else in the world, soldiers just film stuff without any operational security concerns at all, and generally do their army detriment for the greater deal. We also got to see that the Cambodians were once again shelling populated civilian areas, and we were able to see here, at least within the Sisaket region, that they were shelling near to the area of another 7-Eleven or generally a gas station. You could see that in this clip right here. You see them passing through the area. You can actually see the barrage right there. As a matter of fact, to clarify this really quickly, this is actually the same 7-Eleven that the entire war has pretty much been dubbed after, at least on the channel, the 7-Eleven war. This is actually the hit that hit, let me make sure to show this to y'all, because this is technically archival footage. It hit this gas station right here. It was this one, the one that ended up killing 2 civilians and wounding another 2 that were inside the gas station. That was actually the direct hit right there that ended up killing those 2 civilians and wounding the other 2 that has pretty much got this war dubbed the 7-Eleven war here on the channel. Very unfortunate thing to see, but once again, clearly denoting, at least from that footage taken several days ago and finally emerging in the public, that the Cambodians were directly targeting and hitting areas that clearly had no military forces in them at the time of the barrage. If you look at the areas surrounding the gas station, we cannot see any Royal Thai Army vehicles or any service members of the Royal Thai Armed Forces around the area. Neither can we see any convoys along the highway, making this quite clear that this was a targeted attack against civilians inside of Thailand, and once again, a direct breach of the rules of war.
Also, thank goodness for dash cams. We'd have never seen this without the random footage here. Also, it's wild that literally every act of war is caught on camera these days. Like, there's always somebody somewhere, a dash cam, a cell phone, or something that catches it. But that is terrible right there. That's literally a direct hit right on top of the 7-Eleven. That can't be unintentional, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a fairly intentional thing, at least with what the barrage was trying to hit, because we also got to see that they attacked the Phantom Dong Rock Hospital inside of the Surin region, and a wide variety of other civilian targets as well, including villages inside of Laos, which aren't even inside of Thailand, but it appears that they also were targeting those at the very same way that they were attacking Thai villages with their direct artillery barrages against Thailand. It makes it incredibly clear that at least as far as Cambodian artillery doctrine is concerned, they are not at all concerned about directly targeting and precisely striking and destroying enemy armed forces. They are more so concerned or focused on conducting general, broader, sweeping attacks against the country as a whole, pretty much bombarding and killing civilians and soldiers alike if the opportunity arises. Pretty messed up sort of a thing. But we also got to see Cambodian towed artillery pieces also firing, which is incredibly rare. We actually don't see this a lot. Usually it's MLRS fire, but this is one of the few times that we actually got to see a D-30, if I'm not mistaken. It is a D-30. Actually firing on the Cambodian side. We now see them removing the casing and tossing it as they reload another round. You now see them reloading. We can tell that speed is not exactly what they specialize in.
Nothing like the good old-fashioned, hey, to get them to fire it off.
Man, bruh, they said, ready? Huh? Like, bro, they're really good at issuing the orders. I gotta be honest with y'all, it doesn't really seem as though the rate of fire, at least from this D-30, is the maximum sort of a speed that you could get out of the crew. It seems as though the crew's running a little slow, you know? Like, they don't really have a pep in their step. You know, and a lot of people would always talk about a pep in the step is very important, and that actually brings us to tonight's sponsor. I'm just kidding, by the way. We don't have a sponsor on these shows. But nevertheless, it does appear that the Cambodian armed forces are still conducting heavy shellings of pretty much largely the nation of Thailand as a whole, while the Thai are also conducting counterattacks with their air force and armed forces along the border regions. We do understand that, at least as of today, Royal Thai Army forces did retreat from the heights at Preah Vihear Temple, but that appears to be some sort of an act of goodwill, at least going into the negotiations in Malaysia, according to the Thai explanation that was given for that today. Nevertheless, I do want to point out that this has been the deadliest conflict within this region since the 1980s. And it also does appear that for that reason, the negotiations tomorrow are going to be a little bit strenuous. Well, actually, to make the correction here, tomorrow is today, their time. So within a few hours, those negotiations will start to begin, and we'll start to get an idea of where they're going with that. But I also want to say this the best I can, with the kind of situation that we're seeing that is unfolded that is leading into these peace talks. One, the two countries absolutely hate each other from a governmental perspective. There is absolutely no even footing that they have, and they've been involved in an incredibly long and pretty gruesome sort of a confrontation over the ownership of the Preah Vihear Temple. This has been going on for decades, with a small border skirmish from 2008 to 2011 being fought over the ownership of the Preah Vihear Temple, and it appears that an international court ruled in 2011 that it was in fact the Cambodians that had rightful ownership of this temple. Since then, we have seen that the Thai have continued on with what can be described as lawfare, attempting to continue to take this case to court internationally and to try and see that their claim over the Preah Vihear Temple is exacted and that they're able to return the temple to what they believe is rightful Thai ownership. On the other hand, the Cambodians have continued to defend their claim on the Preah Vihear Temple, and this has also started to cause a great deal of animosity throughout Cambodia against the Thai. There are anti-Thai protests protests and riots throughout Cambodia from time to time, and we've also been able to see that this conflict was precipitated by a hostile action taken by the Royal Cambodian Army, which illegally violated the sovereignty of the the Kingdom of Thailand, crossing the border and planting a landmine on a footpath used by Thai soldiers on patrol within this area. A Thai soldier stepped on the landmine, resulting in his death and the wounding of several others of his squad members inside of his fire team. As a result of that created an incredibly great deal of animosity and strain between the already frayed relationship between the Kingdom of Thailand and the Kingdom of Cambodia, and led into the direct armed confrontation that has now become the bloodiest one in decades that we're seeing between the two countries. That is the current diplomatic situation that they're going to be entering into in the negotiations at Kuala Lumpur here within the next few hours. And because of that, there are several key issues that would have to be fixed or largely addressed for this ceasefire to ever try and achieve. A ceasefire can be forced without fixing the underlying issues, but we would generally describe in terms of foreign policy a ceasefire of that nature to be cheap. If the United States of America really wanted to see that both sides were able to put aside their differences and stop this fighting, hopefully for an incredibly long period of time, they will have to try and see that the underlying issue of the ownership of the Prey of a Heart Temple, the death of the Thai service member, as well as the death of the Thai civilians that have also been hit since the border war began in full and have also been killed and wounded, would have to be addressed. We do understand that at this moment, as far as international law would be concerned, the Kingdom of Thailand has operated in this conflict in acts of self-defense. The outbreak of the conflict itself was because of an act of aggression on the Cambodian side, and for this reason, if any country was to give concessions to the other, if we were to try and actually approach this situation amicably from a third-party perspective, it actually would be the Cambodians that would have to give concessions to the Kingdom of Thailand, because the Thai were operating by all metrics and evidence provided in self-defense of their sovereignty and also the self-defense of their citizenry and armed forces who came under an attack by a Cambodian violation of the border's sovereignty. So that is going to be a major underlying issue to be solved. And that generally begs the question, will those underlying issues, or that key underlying issue, be solvable in tomorrow's peace talks inside of Kuala Lumpur? What are y'all's expectations or thoughts on what is going to be happening in those peace talks, and do y'all think that a ceasefire, given the current situation, would be achievable between the two warring nations? And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so we are seeing today that clearly Cambodia and Thailand are exchanging massive blows with each other. They're not calming down whatsoever, even though the U.S. is demanding they come to the peace talks and basically have an immediate ceasefire. Neither country is really able to back down because it looks like the situation is really that out of hand. So what are your thoughts about the upcoming talks? Is it going to be successful, or what are we going to be looking at this point? So 49% said the war will go on for months, while 22% said the war will stop in mere days, and 17% said it seems extremely uncertain. And honestly, in my opinion, I think we might see a forced ceasefire. That is my initial guess. We'll probably see it, but it probably won't last very long. So probably in reality, the war will go on for months, but you will probably see a temporary cessation of the fighting, at least for maybe a few hours, if not a day or so. But once again, that's not a concrete thing. Of course, that's just my speculation. That could be different. We'll just have to wait and see. But usually, these forced ceasefires don't hold up very long, but it sounds like the U.S. is hell-bent on making this happen at this point. So I'm with the 49%. I think it'll go on for months with a temporary little stop. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with the 49% as well, but we do have to understand that the current situation is being pressured by the United States of America, and for this reason, it could throw in a little bit of a wild card into what we would expect. At the moment, we do understand that the Cambodians will not be backing down. If they want to back down, they would have backed down after the Thai soldier was killed by the landmine that was placed on their side of the border, and that was not the case, meaning that we would expect that the Cambodians are most likely not going to be backing off in the negotiations tomorrow. But not only that, but considering that video that violated their operational security came out today, showing entire MLRS battalions moving towards the front line, that is also clearly showing us that the Cambodians are not preparing to reach a ceasefire tomorrow. Otherwise, they would not be deploying additional forces towards the border. That could be considered or explained away as a precaution, but if both sides were incredibly serious, as has been insinuated by the President of the United States, in reaching a peace at the ceasefire talk tomorrow, we would not see the additional deployment of forces on the Cambodian side. For this reason, it's incredibly clear that the Cambodians are not willing to give in to any concessions, most likely in tomorrow's negotiations, negotiations, and considering that the Thai will be looking for some sort of concessions due to the death of their service member as well as the violation of their sovereignty, we can assume that the Thai will also not find any common ground with the Cambodians, and the war will most likely keep going on beyond this point. I also have to say that because of that, the war will most likely be going on for months. Whether or not the United States is directly threatening trade relations with the Cambodians and the Thai, if this situation cannot be resolved amicably in a ceasefire tomorrow, there is no other option rather than this war continuing. If a ceasefire is somehow forced, which the chances are actually somewhat decent that a ceasefire could be forced without fixing the underlying issue here, it is also decently possible that as a result of that, the war could end right now, but restart at a much sooner date, most likely within 2026 or 2027, as the underlying issues would not be resolved, and as far as the governments of the two countries would be concerned, there still would be an unsettled score that would have to be solved by one nation or the other. So for that reason, I'm generally within the camp that this war is going to be most likely going on for months, because it's already clearly noted by the severity and intensity of the fighting that we've seen so far, which has beaten out everything that has been seen in this region since the 1980s. So that would largely be my 2 cents on this. I do believe that this is going to be going on for some time longer. But moving on out of this region, and also really quickly, I do have to say that it is an absolutely amazing thing to see that the fundraiser has raised $1,052 in support of Razum for Ukraine. Hey, look at that! Look at that! We've hit $1,052 raised out of a $2,500 goal. An absolutely impressive thing, and I hope that people continue to support the fundraiser, because the fundraiser is going to support Razum for Ukraine, which is an amazing Ukrainian nonprofit that has been helping to save the lives of citizens and soldiers alike inside the state of Ukraine, and any support that they get goes entirely to Razum for Ukraine and helps them to continue their efforts and achievements that they've been able to conduct inside of Ukraine for about the past 3.5 years, actually longer than that. But nevertheless, moving on from Southeast Asia and on into our Middle Eastern news, we have also been able to hear of some major developments inside of the Middle East, as we were able to hear an announcement from the Yemeni Houthis commander today. This was quite a serious announcement. We're going to be reading off exactly what they put out as their statement about the situation inside of the southern Red Sea today. Given the rapid developments in occupied Palestine, specifically in the Gaza Strip, including the continuation of the war of genocide and the martyrdom of thousands of our brotherly Palestinian people as a result of the aggression and siege that has been ongoing for months, and amid the shameful Arab, Islamic, and international silence, Yemen, in the face of the continuation of these horrific, brutal, and unprecedented massacres in our contemporary history, find itself faces a religious, moral, and humanitarian responsibility toward the oppressed who are subjected daily and around the clock to killing and destruction by air, land, and sea bombardment, as well as to starvation and thirst due to the stifling and severe siege on steadfast and proud Gaza, which is unacceptable to any human being, let alone Arabs and Muslims. Accordingly, the Yemeni armed forces, this is speaking for the Houthis, not the official government of Yemen, relying on Allah Almighty and trusting in Allah, have decided to escalate their military support operations and begin implementing the fourth phase of the naval blockade against the enemy. This phase includes targeting all ships belonging to any company that deals with the ports of the Israeli enemy, regardless of the nationality of that company and in any location within the reach of our armed forces. The Yemeni armed forces warn all companies to cease their dealings with Israeli enemy ports, starting from the moment this statement is announced. Otherwise, their ships, regardless of their destination, will be targeted anywhere that can be reached or within the reach of our missiles and drones. The Yemeni armed forces call on all countries, if they want to avoid this escalation, to pressure the enemy to halt its aggression and lift the blockade on the Gaza Strip. There is no free person on this earth who can accept what is happening. The actions of the Yemeni armed forces, speaking for the Houthis, not the official Yemeni government, express our moral and humanitarian commitment to the injustice against the brotherly Palestinian people, and all our military operations will be ceased immediately upon the cessation of aggression against Gaza and the lifting of the blockade. In short, in this long-winded statement issued by the Yemeni Houthis today, they are now going to be conducting an unlimited restriction, pretty much unlimited warfare against any commercial vessels passing through the southern Red Sea. As of today, the southern Red Sea is completely blockaded by the Yemeni Houthis by their official statements that they made not too long ago. If you will note, to once again return back to their official statement, they stated that this includes targeting all ships belonging to any company that deals with the ports of the Israeli enemy, regardless of the nationality of that company, and in any location within the reach of our armed forces. This means, by this little diplomatically worded statement, that any company that has ever had a ship that is docked in Israel is going to be subject to attack if they pass within a region that is within reach of the Yemeni Houthis, which is the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and specifically the southern Red Sea. This means that the Yemeni Houthis are back to their full-form acts of piracy, and absolutely nothing was achieved by the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes that were conducted at the beginning of this year that attempted to drive the Yemeni Houthis into complete submission and stop them from conducting such attacks against commercial international shipping passing through the area of the southern Red Sea. This means that we are back to square one as it existed in the earlier part of 2025, and also through most of 2024. The Yemeni Houthis are going to be continuing their attacks against commercial shipping within this region, no matter the country, to make that incredibly clear. This has nothing to do with the state of Israel. This has everything to do with global shipping. They are once again cutting off a vital shipping lane that accounts for 17% of global shipping traffic because they find some sort of a personal conviction and also legal authority to be able to exercise control over the international waters and straits that exist within the southern Red Sea. This, by all legal definitions under international law, falls under an act of piracy. For this reason, we are now once again confronted with the issue, at least here in the United States and throughout the Western world, as to what the solution should be to deal with the Yemeni Houthis. And once again, I do want to make it quite clear that we have attempted to deal with the Houthis in the past. And the two ways that we have attempted to conduct any sorts of actions against the Houthis' illegal acts of piracy were through airstrikes and attempted diplomatic negotiations and concessions. Both airstrikes and diplomatic negotiations and concessions have failed, as this is now the third and, well, actually the fourth time, even by Houthi admittance, that they have continued their attacks once more on any commercial ships passing through the southern Red Sea. With that in mind, what are people thinking, Matthew, about what should be done against the Yemeni Houthis to once again reopen this vital shipping lane that's not only important to Western commerce, but more particularly American commerce as well? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So it looks like the people in the chat are about almost in agreement here. It looks like 41%, the most popular option here, is the USA should restart strikes on the Yemeni Houthis immediately, while 36% said both Israel and the USA should respond in unison to this threat, while 18% said just let Israel handle the issue on their own and it should go away. So on this one, here's the problem. The U.S. has already been involved with the Houthis. We've already airstruck them before, a month or so, or maybe longer back, and it really didn't stop anything. The U.S. claimed a victory, but obviously it's not a victory because they wouldn't be striking more ships right now if we had had a real victory. So the U.S. is already sort of entangled in this one. We can't just simply run off now that it's become inconvenient. So we're already tied in. So I think both Israel and the United States should respond. It's an issue which affects global shipping. It's not just related just to Israel. It affects everybody. So the Houthis need to learn their lesson still. And they're once again conducting piracy and terrorism in the Red Sea and international waters where they have no right to do so. So I'm with the 36%. I think they should both respond. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm with the 42%, regardless of what they're saying about the Israelis, or regardless whether the Israelis would join in or not. I think that it's speaking for the United States in particular, that the United States should start to conduct armed action using all means available to be able to deal with the Houthi threat that's being posed to one of the most important shipping lanes on the planet currently. The Yemeni Houthis in their actions are not only threatening the state of Israel, which really is more so the smaller fry of this whole situation, they are threatening global shipping as a whole. Let me show y'all something really quickly. Let me go to Marine Tracker and let me show y'all what the normal shipping lanes look like in this area. So let's go here and let's see if I can find us a little bit of info on all of the ships that are out here in the world right now. So let me click X on that and let's see if I can show y'all all of the ships that are currently in transit around the world right now. So as y'all can see, there's a decent amount of traffic that passes around the continent of Africa. These are actually all of the ships that are underway in the entirety of the world right now. And what is a little bit interesting about this is that 17% of global shipping passes through the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and then into the Indian Ocean, and then on towards Asia. This is an incredibly important shipping lane by every single metric. And what you will notice right now is that this shipping lane is already somewhat thin. And that is because a lot of companies have decided to take the long and more arduous journey around the entirety of the continent of Africa, lengthening the journey by weeks, and not only that, lengthening the amount of time by weeks, and also costing the companies a great deal of financial sums of money in terms of marine fuel, typically some form of bunker sea oil or something along those lines, that has to be burned for these ships to be able to make it all the way around the continent of Africa and add these thousands of miles and weeks of time to their journey. This is causing undue economic stress onto the West, and not only that, it is cutting down on a vital shipping lane that the Yemeni Houthis have no legal right or authority to be able to police and blockade. The waters that pass through the southern Red Sea are international waters, and no vessels should be stopped from passing through this area, as that is a right under international law of the open high seas. For this reason, whether or not the Israelis or anyone else should join in, speaking for the United States individually, I believe that the United States should take any and every action necessary to be able to open up the shipping lane back to U.S. naval traffic. Of course, I would say that the United States should not be alone in this action. I think that we should try and create a multinational coalition, particularly made up of Middle Eastern states, including the State of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the legitimate Yemeni government, still in control of some large areas of the country, to be able to conduct an armed offensive campaign on the ground to be able to crush the Houthis once and for all. It's incredibly clear that if we airstrike them again, they will turn tail once more, and they will stop their attacks for only a limited period of time. And then at that point, we are waiting for them to be able to start their blockade once more within the Red Sea and cause untold damage and losses to Western shipping companies, and not only that, threaten the lives of Western sailors, and not only that, our Western economies as a whole, whenever they decide that the time is ripe again to conduct that blockade. They should never be allowed that sort of a chance or responsibility. And if it comes down to the economic success of the West or the seizure of the existence of the Houthis, I would say that I would rather prefer the seizure of the existence of the Houthis than any extra dime, dollar, or drop of blood lost by Western sailors or the sailors of any Western aligned nation passing through this area of the southern Red Sea. This should never be accepted. We should now move on into being even more aggressive against the Houthis, because they will learn that whatever they believe they are trying to do or achieve, that there's going to be a lot more coming around, at least for a day of judgment, if they'd like to call it that, for themselves, than there ever would be for the United States of America or the Western world because of their actions. If we are not yet willing to deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran, we should still deal with the Houthis at this moment right now. There is a very turbulent time coming up in the world. It's clear to see. Wars are breaking out just about anywhere and everywhere that they could. There is no time to spare, and there is no lenience that can be given by the West, considering that the Yemeni Houthis quite literally may as well be in control of an area as important in the world, or more important, than the Panama Canal. That is a ridiculous idea, to leave a force like this where they can continuously threaten at any time of their choosing the safe passage of ships through this region, and particularly our ships, and this should stop immediately. And we should take any and every action necessary to be able to crush the Houthis, take their leaders, and hold them accountable to Western justice and the violations of human rights and international laws that they've conducted on the high seas. And I would actually say that they should be treated by the accordance of American law as pirates. And pirates are subject to summary execution for the large part if found conducting acts of piracies on the high seas or supporting any acts of piracy. So I would generally believe that that should be the U.S. position on this matter, and I think that we should have a wide sum of countries in the Middle East supporting our actions, and not only that, joining us on the ground to once again restore order to Western Yemen and to ensure that these people will never pose a threat to our ships or our ally ships ever again. And so that would generally be at least my position on the situation. And if you like my position, vote for me for president in 2040. This situation hopefully will not be around by 2040, but these will be the kind of approaches and common sense sorts of takes that you'll hear if I was president in the year of 2040. But nevertheless, moving on from that, and on out of Western Yemen, it is time for us to get on into the rest of the Middle Eastern news, because we still have a lot of it. We were able to hear, for one, that it appears that the proxy forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, not just the Houthis, are beginning to get a little bit more active and are preparing to take more hostile actions against the West at large. We were able to hear that Hezbollah is on high alert, and according to what we've been able to hear, they have now placed most of their members on alert in preparation for any potential scenario. According to the Al-Hadath, which reports reported this on Sunday inside of Lebanon. The group's Qard al-Hassan Association has also postponed its payments as part of a broader preparedness policy for possible military action. No other media outlets have confirmed the report, but it does appear that at least from internal Lebanese sources, the Hezbollah may be preparing to conduct more actions against the state of Israel here within the near future, which, aligned with the actions of the Houthis today, are starting to show that the Islamic Republic of Iran's government is attempting to use their terrorist forces in the region to further destabilize Western and American interests at large. We also were able to hear on top of that the President of the United States has made some very strongly worded comments against the Islamic Republic of Iran, as the President of the United States says that Iran has been using has been very nasty with the words, and also added that Iran says it wants to continue enrichment. Who says that? How stupid do you have to be to say that? We're not going to let it happen. Once again, making the
I wonder what kind of intelligence we have in the United States indicating what Iran's actually doing right now, because the last I saw, it looked like the activity had largely died down around the nuclear sites inside of Iran that had been struck by the B-2 bombers. At least that's what I've heard so far. So obviously Iran's making statements that they're going to restart it. And they've been saying that pretty much ever since they were struck, and they would pretty much have every reason to restart it because they were, of course, attacked. And now they're going to, of course, want to retaliate by continuing the nuclear research. So I wonder what the actual facts are here, because, we really just can't take Iran's word for it. Like, they can say a bunch of bluster all day long, but without something concrete, which we really haven't gotten word about yet, it's kind of hard to tell where it's really going to go.
I would have to agree. It's really hard to see where this would go, but I believe that the intelligence is starting to come out that's quite clear that enrichment and enrichment abilities has not stopped inside of Iran, and they are largely continuing forward just with a reduction of usable facilities, because we did knock out a couple of them clearly. So that generally appears to be the case, but it also, I would like to make this a little bit clear, folks, it also does appear that, like we were saying, the job was not done or completed in Operation Midnight Hammer. We tried to make that as clear as we could back in the day, and based off of the statements of the president as they came out today, it's pressingly clear that the kind of completion that we needed, or the kind of guarantees that we needed from Operation Midnight Hammer, that all of Iran's nuclear research and production capabilities were destroyed, was not achieved. And there is generally nothing wrong with that. Now, what is wrong with that, though, is saying that it was completely destroyed and it was an absolute victory, considering that we're now saying that their continued wish to enrich is an issue. Because I want to make this a little bit clear, with some logical deduction here involved, that if they were wanting to say that they were going to continue to enrich, but they clearly did not have any abilities to enrich, this would not be an issue. This wouldn't even be addressed. The problem is that this is being addressed by the president because their wishes to continue uranium enrichment to a weapons grade can be followed upon by actual concerted action through the existing uranium enrichment plants that they still are running and operating inside of Iran. That is the reason why this statement is clearly some sort of a threat or some sort of a issue to the United States of America, that the president would make a mention on that. That is something that I have a little bit of an issue with, because if we wanted to say that Midnight Hammer did not complete the destruction of Iran's nuclear research and development capabilities, that was completely fine. But attempting to say that it was completely destroyed, and now we're having to pretty much start changing the story to go, well, we might actually have to get back involved against the Iranians and actually conduct a far longer and more extensive air campaign against them, that generally was already known and assumed from the start, at least here on the channel. We do know that the Islamic Republic of Iran had a very large amount, and still has a decently large amount, of uranium enrichment and nuclear research facilities and sites that still remain intact after Operation Midnight Hammer, that allows for them to continue their research and development of nuclear weaponry. The fact that the Iranian government is saying that they are going to keep pressing forward and that they will not accept any compromise on enrichment is once again making it incredibly clear as well that they are seeking nuclear weaponization. And to any detractors who would say otherwise, if they were never attempting to create a nuclear weapon, why would they not agree on a limitation to their uranium enrichment abilities at 60%? The only usable grades of nuclear fuel that exists out there in the world is the 60% grade for nuclear fuel purposes in nuclear reactors, at a 90% grade for nuclear nuclear weaponry. If the Iranians were not wanting to create a nuclear weapon, why would they simply not agree to that 60% enrichment cap? It would not be a difficult one to reach, especially if they were not wanting to create nuclear weapons. The fact that they are denying any sort of a limitation on their enrichment is because they are working towards creating a nuclear weapon. This is entirely different to the situation that we saw leading up to the invasion in 2003 of Iraq. Iraq swore up and down that they did not have the ability to create a nuclear weapon and that they were not creating a nuclear weapon. And when the United States would approach them and tell them to dismantle any form of yellow cake uranium or any other sorts of clear evidence of them creating a nuclear weapon, the Iraqis would just continuously insist, we do not have an ability to even produce a nuclear weapon. This is completely different to the Islamic Republic of Iran, where we approach them and say, we do not want you creating a nuclear weapon, and we want limits on your ability to enrich uranium. The Iranians return and say, we are developing a nuclear weapon, and we are not going to stop our abilities to enrich to a 90% grade. We are not even going to accept any limitations to our enrichment abilities, and we are going to keep pressing forward with the production and creation of a nuclear weapon. It is even said by Iranian government officials inside of the Iranian parliament that they are working towards a nuclear weapon. This isn't some sort of a hidden secret or something that is being mistaken by intelligence. The Iranian government, unlike the Iraqis, has made it incredibly clear their intent to produce a nuclear weapon and their hell-bent attempts to continue to try and work towards the production of a nuclear weapon. They are posing a direct threat to our interest in the Middle East and the United States directly because they're also simultaneously operating a ballistic missile program that is attempting to produce intermediate range ballistic missiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles with a range long enough to be able to reach the United States of America. They already have some intermediate range ballistic missiles that can reach most of Europe. That means that they're not that far away from getting the sort of technological breakthroughs needed to be able to make intercontinental ballistic missiles that can directly reach the United States of America. So with all of this put together, it's incredibly clear that we will have to go back into the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we will have to finish the job that we left incomplete after Operation Midnight Hammer, which with anyone who was able to pay attention would have clearly been able to see that the job appeared to have not yet been done and was not yet completed. But nevertheless, moving on from that, we also were able to hear that the Iranians are taking out their anger on the Afghans, which is something that I did not expect. According to information that we've been able to get from Bloomberg, it appears, and also reposted by FITUX Network, Iran is deporting Afghans en masse after accusing some of spying for Israel, triggering xenophobic violence and harassment. Over 1 million Afghans have actually fled the country since June, including another 630,000 of them being deported directly by the Iranian government. The UN warns of devastating consequences for these refugees, which are now being deported back to Afghanistan by the hundreds of thousands. We do understand.
That sounds like that paranoia because, of course there's Mossad agents running around Iran pretty much everywhere. That's why we're seeing explosions all over the place. The Iranian government finally admitted it. So now their solution to deal with that is they're going to take out all this anger on the Afghans, start sending them over to Afghanistan. Honestly, that's like the cheap way to try to deal with it. It's like, why pick on the Afghans just because the Israelis have snuck in and are sabotaging stuff?
Dude, the Iranians sat there and got bombed by the Israelis and went, oh, damn, these damn Afghans. and then he just started taking out their anger against the Afghans. I don't even know why.
They're not even involved.
Yeah, they're not even involved. And also on top of that, it's like, if you look at the official government of Afghanistan, it's the Taliban. That's not really a friendly government to Israel. So it's like, why in the world would especially a nearly 630,000 Afghans, be secret informants to Israel? Like, that makes no sense. Like, honestly, this is just extreme paranoia, and they found a scapegoat, and it just appears to be a massive Afghans. It makes no sense. Like, that actually makes no sense at all, but it appears that the Iranians are taking it out on the Afghans. They're just mass deporting them. I think that, at least in terms of the numbers, more Afghans have left Iran than I think Armenians were killed in the Armenian genocide by the Ottomans in the latter part of World War I. So that's actually a little bit crazy to think about, at least in the terms of numbers of people who are involved in this right now. It's a little bit shocking. But moving on from that, and on into some more news that we actually have been able to get out of the Middle East. We were also able to hear that some Israeli helicopters are heading to the As-Sawaida Governorate. We haven't really been able to get a lot of information on that, so we just have to leave it as largely standalone news. And we also were able to hear within the Gaza Strip that food trucks are beginning to enter the area, and this is what the scene is currently looking like right now.
Wow, that's a mess.
It is.
Super dangerous, too. You know, it is unfortunate just for the people that are there in this area that really don't have a choice because they have to obviously live under the reign of the terrorists because the terrorists control the whole place. They have to deal with this and then also try to fight for food just for scraps and things like that. I mean, it's really awful. But at the same time, though, like while this is awful, it's like, you know, nobody in this region wants to stand up against the terrorists because it's too big of a task, I guess, for them. I get the fact that it's intimidating, but nobody has I guess you could say, the integrity to stand up and say, we need to form a band against these people, these terrorists, and take them out of power so that way we can get out of this oppression. They're not doing that. They're just kind of accepting it. They're living in this hell, and it just keeps going on until they decide to band together and get rid of the terrorists. This kind of crap right here is going to keep on going on.
I would have to agree. And of course, the humanitarian situation, the reason why I was showing this video to all of y'all, is strenuous inside the Gaza Strip. The continued conflict that's going on in the region, as well as the destabilization caused because of the fighting between Hamas and the IDF, is continuing to cause undue suffering to the mass of citizens, the mass of civilians that are living within this strip. And so for that reason, we can see that whenever a UN humanitarian convoy is able to enter the strip, like we saw there, they're pretty much swarmed by everyone trying to get some food because there's practically no resources available to most of the citizens inside the Gaza Strip. It's also a tougher situation because it's further compounded by the fact that Hamas usually takes control of a decent amount of the food resources not long after they enter the area and pretty much use it as an additional weapon against the citizens of the Gaza Strip by forcing them to promise some form of loyalty to be able to get any of the food that was provided by the UN humanitarian convoys. So it is a fairly difficult situation that we're seeing right now inside the Gaza Strip, and it appears that the humanitarian situation is as strenuous as it's been over the past whiles. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on out of the Middle East and on into the greater news of the world at large, including a great deal of the Ukraine war, which is actually what tonight's fundraiser is being run for, which has been able to raise an amazing $1,203 within the first hour alone. And hopefully we'll be able to hit that remainder of the fundraiser goal, which is about halfway to the goal of $2,500 raised. And so, Matthew, please tell us, who are the top donors of the fundraisers so far?
All right, so we have had a good amount of top donors tonight, and our first one is Hal Rose, who threw in a $100 donation, massive support of the fundraiser. Also, some guy called the Enforcer throwing a $100 as well, and then we had a $90 from Old Warrior, as well as a $50 from Howard Mendelson, a $50 from Snow White, and a $50 from JP on the road. And thanks to all the donations tonight, we've gotten up to $1,203 raised, which is almost just about halfway to the goal of $2,500. So we are getting there slowly but surely to that goal to, of course, help the victims of the war in Ukraine yet again on another Sunday night fundraiser stream. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say a massive thanks to all of the top donors and all of the donors that we've seen so far tonight through the fundraiser for helping to support Razom for Ukraine. It's an amazing nonprofit that has been helping out Ukrainian citizens, families, and soldiers throughout a decent part of the conflict. And I've got to say that it's amazing to see that people continue to support American and Western interests through the amazing fundraisers like the one for Razom for Ukraine tonight. I hope that we are able to see that we reached the $2,500 goal, because so far over the history of the channel, we have never missed a fundraiser goal. And I would hope that the Lee Spring Army continues to see that the fundraiser goals are surpassed and that Western American interests are still supported in full here, at least according to the fundraiser goals on the channel. So with that, a massive thanks to each and every one of y'all so much once again for supporting the fundraiser so far, and hopefully we'll be able to see that we make it the rest of the half of the way there to the fundraiser goal here incredibly soon. But before we move on into the rest of our news, and particularly the Ukraine war itself, I do want to make sure that we get a couple of questions out of the chat in honor of all the folks who have been here so far and the 50,000 people who have watched this stream since it started. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right. And also, by the way, YouTube is apparently still allowing super chats. We've had two of them tonight, actually, even though we're technically aren't supposed to be super chats tonight. YouTube stole us some through. So we're going to address those two first and then jump into our live chats. So this one goes to Super Creech, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Super Creech, for that support. They said, both enforcers, how would you deal with the Houthi threat? Thanks, men. LSA, Thailand, Ukraine, Israel. Now, me personally, I would say this. I'm not a fan of sending in troops on the ground in Yemen to deal with that threat. I'm not a fan of that whatsoever because that's getting us tied up in an area which really we don't need to be tied up in on the ground because that will require a lot of resources to make that happen. And even though that would be the most effective way to deal with it, I just really don't like that idea. I would say put the majority of the responsibility on Israel and tell Israel that we will back them up and also provide our aerial assets to help strike the Houthis yet again. But since it is Israel's area of responsibility, I would say put the majority of the responsibility on them and make the Houthis think twice before they start conducting piracy and attacking innocent vessels trying to transit through the Red Sea. That's the way I would deal with it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm more for supporting the deployment of troops on inside of Yemen to deal with the situation because it's quite clear that continuously bombing them isn't doing anything, and I'm more for results that work more so than just doing something to generally put a band-aid on it again and push it another 8 months or even less than that down the road. Bombing them endlessly is not doing anything to fix this problem, and they keep popping back up and they keep threatening commercial shipping, which has nothing to do with the Israelis. That has more to do with the global economic stability, at least in our corner of the world. So for that reason, I would generally say that I'm a fan of creating an international coalition within the area, supported by the Saudis, the Israelis, and the Yemenis, and conducting a combined ground action against the Yemeni Houthis to be able to crush them, hold the area under occupation that will then be carried on by the Yemeni government and the Saudis, and then eventually see that they are completely deprived of the coastline that they are able to use to be able to conduct these attacks against commercial shipping, and also completely deprived of the general control that they have that is pretty much unchallenged within Western Yemen, that continues to allow them to raise their forces, be supplied by the Iranians, and to keep their actions going indefinitely into the future. Bombing them for the fourth or fifth time in a row is going to produce the same result that we saw right now. And then we're going to be back at square one in 4 to 8 months, and that's something that I generally don't like the idea of. This is generally the reason I would say this sort of an approach that we're probably going to see is the kind of situation that continues to leave America in a constant state of decay on the international world stage, because we continuously see that every administration doesn't want to be the one to take the strong necessary actions that may be needed at the time to actually fix the situation. Instead, everyone wants to put an emergency band-aid on it, and then that band-aid pops off, and the bleeding is getting worse and worse each time the band-aid's popping off, but we just keep pushing it back on and hoping that it'll hold for a couple of minutes longer before it pops back off again and the bleeding worsens. The United States has to be out there in the world taking care of the situations that are threatening us and our allies. Otherwise, we won't have allies or a nation to be able to protect any longer. And I would say that considering that we've tried bombing them almost a handful of times at this point, and each and every time it's failed, and each and every time they've gotten right back to it within a matter of a mere months, that bombing them again just won't really be the fix to this problem. Also, leaving the Israelis to deal with it won't do squat, in my opinion, because the Israelis do not have a way to support or field a significant ground force inside of a region that far away. They don't have the power projection ability, so if we leave it up to them, they're airstriking them again, and that's not going to fix anything. They're just going to, once again, go into hiding for a couple of months, pop back up, and start the attacks again. And if we leave it to the Yemeni government's too weak on their own to actually be able to push the Houthis out, because that civil war has been going on for 11 years. So the Houthis can't deal with it on their own. The Israelis don't have power projection abilities to crush the Houthis, whether we support them or not. And the Saudis don't really seem adamant to deal with the action because they apparently have assessed that the damage is negligible, and taking on such a extensive action on their own also would not be necessary. If we combine forces in the region and we say that we're all going in on the ground and we're all going to deal with the Houthis, and everyone just has to put up a little bit of work and effort and expense at the onset, and then turn it into an occupation for a short while to stabilize the region and bring it back under centralized Yemeni control, we will probably see that that would be the best long-term solution that we could get out of the area. Otherwise, we just end up exacerbating the issue, well, not really exacerbating it, but allowing it to continue to exist, much like we've done with every other issue in the Middle East, and we just continue to have to go back time and time again and extinguish the fires, which costs a lot of money, and also takes a lot of resources in itself to do. Because airstrikes are not cheap, like we saw with the last airstrikes. Those cost, I believe, tens of billions of dollars, and we got nothing out of it. So at this point, right now, funnily enough, at least based off of the cost of the last air campaign we conducted against the Houthis, if we're having to do that every 6 months, it's actually costing us more to bomb the Houthis than it does to support Ukraine over the course of about 2 full years in full military and economic support. It's just financially, from a financial standpoint and also the efficacy standpoint of it, it's not effective in my opinion. And I would have to say that, like a lot of people are saying in the chat, playing whack-a-mole isn't really my sort of a foray in foreign policy. My sort of a standpoint is to take a situation and try and create a long-term solution to it that hopefully would last much longer than a couple of months, at least a couple of years, maybe even a decade or several decades before the situation degrades again. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, by the way, Super Creech. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one here, and actually let's call off one more, because we hadn't moved to our live chat questions, right?
We haven't gotten to the live chats yet.
Okay, just making sure. But a big shout out to John Combest for putting in a $50 donation as well and helping to bring us up to $1,410 raised on the fundraiser. So we're now officially over the halfway mark and getting very close to hitting that $2,500 goal. But moving on here to our next one, this one goes to Dippin' on This, who puts in a 5. He said, love the coverage and LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for loving the coverage. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And the Lee Spring Army will never die. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to get on into our 3 live chats of the night. Because due to the super chats, we weren't able to hold up our normal obligation. So now we're going to be grabbing 3 live chats for this question segment. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Jeff Alley, who said, Enforcer, did you guys hear about the 50,000 IRGC that changed sides? And I've heard it in a couple of places, and what have y'all heard?
I personally haven't heard about that, so I would generally have to declare ignorance, because such a defection in the IRGC would be so large that that would have to pop up on some sort of an international scale to where we would have video or picture evidence of some sort of a rebellion like that. And personally, I haven't seen any, so I'd generally have to declare ignorance on that. But Matthew, have you seen anything about that?
No, I haven't personally seen that. I have seen over the last couple of days, though, there's been several channels that have been clickbaiting the hell out of like fake topics. Like I have seen that. I had one person reach out to me and say, have you seen this? I looked at it and I was like, where the hell did they come up with that? They were like saying the Kursk bridge had been demolished or something to that effect. And I looked at it, I was like, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And in fact, we reported on the one story that indicated that maybe the bridge was scratched up, but it was just complete BS that they were putting in the title. So I think that might be maybe another like clickbait article or something, because I haven't heard anything about 50,000 IRGC changing sides. If that happened, that would be all over the news. Like that would be all over the place. And I haven't seen any signs of it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be huge, and I personally haven't heard of that either, but I do know that at least on the internet, a lot of misinformation is always wandering around, and I have to ask y'all to please be vigilant against that. That sounds like it might be a pretty high chance of misinformation on whoever put that story out that you were hearing about, because there are a lot of people who quite truly do clickbait a story with the sole purpose of clickbaiting with no actual news involved. I will have to say that every channel clickbaits. That's just the way of the business on YouTube. And we also conduct some clickbait, but it is still founded in reality, and the news is actually something that does exist. Like tonight, major battles on the Thai border is something that does exist, and the Houthis did blockade a key strait in the world. Is it clickbait? Yeah, because we put it in all caps. But is it true? Yes, we actually do have the news to actually be able to corroborate that and support that. But other channels actually will just fabricate entire news stories that they come up with to be able to try and be sensational, because they want to stick out of the crowd. They have decided that if they can't make it in the algorithm normally, which is what we do, is by putting out a real story and actually having a good enough presentation and information about it and a good enough title and thumbnail that we're able to make it on the real news stories, some of these people decide that they're just going to come up with a story so that way they'll pop up out the algorithm because of that fake story. And because it's so crazy and sensational, people will click on it because it sounds like something crazy. It's unbelievable. It's kind of like what tabloids do with stories about celebrities. People buy those tabloids because the stories are outlandish and they're crazy crazy and they can't believe that they're even real. So they have to buy them to learn more. And that's pretty much the same thing with a lot of stories on YouTube that people put out. Like back in the day, the most famous example that we have are the infamous train robbery stories that came out of the Ukraine war, where every single day some Ukrainian special forces unit was supposedly hijacking a Russian train that just happened to be carrying all of the most important military equipment in the Russian army on it, like a Su-57, a T-14 Armata, Putin himself, Kadyrov and his entire crew, and then they'd run it across the border into Ukraine and get away scot-free, like that ever happened. I remember those stories vividly because people kept on coming and asking us, did you hear about this crazy train robbery? And the answer is no, because it didn't happen. There was no proof of it. There was no real indicators that it even happened. And if the Ukrainians pulled off something like that, they would let us know. And they didn't let us know. So that's sounds a lot like what's going on with that story that you heard about. Actually sounds like whoever's putting that out clickbaited it, because we haven't had any proof on something like that. So with that, I hope
Okay. So I'm seeing here apparently where this is coming from. Now, once again, there's no like concrete sources saying that 50,000 IRGC have defected or changed sides. There is no concrete articles. I want to make that clear right off the bat. But the rumor, though, is apparently coming from, it looks like maybe a former leader of Iran. And this is just based on the Twitter search. So I'm not even sure if this is actually even accurate, but there's claims out there that 50,000 IRGC defectors have signed up for a former Iranian leader's app, meaning that they want to turn on the Iranian regime that's currently in power. That sounds like something to me that I wouldn't take as fact whatsoever. Whoever is reporting that as fact should probably make a clear disclaimer that that's just probably a rumor, because we have nothing to really back that up that I've seen in the public eye. So definitely take that one with a huge grain of salt.
Also, I saw someone say, the one channel is claiming a hostile alien spaceship is on its way, lol. Yeah, that one's one that's been making the rounds even in mainstream news, because a Harvard study group said that they spotted an alien spaceship or something like that months away. It's going to arrive in November and kill everyone. And my question is, one, how do they confirm that there's aliens on board? Two, how do they confirm it's a spaceship? Three, how in the world are they able to even track this thing? Because tracking something in space is next to impossible, because, shocker, there's no light out there for the most part. Or if there is, it's very faint, so it's really impossible to see anything that's just traveling around out there, unless if it's illuminated by a star or the sun, and you're able to see the light cast upon its form. So it's like, how in the world did they come up with any of that? It's like, I don't even know. Like, does it sound like it's even truthful? Not really. I mean, it's like also, if you even saw an object it's that many months away in space right now, so it's on the edge of the solar system, I'd assume. Well, actually, it's probably more so closer to us than I would like to say. It's probably somewhere in between us and Mars, but still beyond that, it's like, even if it is that close, how the hell can you even see if there's any sort of life on this object that's moving around? It'd be impossible. A satellite is not that strong enough, or a telescope for that matter, is not that strong enough to be able to see that or tell that. So it's like, there's just no way in hell that that's even true. So, you know, that's I'll be honest with y'all, that story sounds fake as hell to me. And because it came from Harvard, they're like, oh my God, you know, rev up the presses. We've got to come up with this crazy story here, because people are going to be wanting to hear about that one until the cows come home. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, I saw someone say intergalactic object. Yeah, you know, it's like, it could be a meteor. It's most likely a meteor or a comet or something along those lines. And it's just traveling through like normal. Because it's like, also it's like, wouldn't NASA report on this if they saw it? Like, wouldn't NASA, if anyone would, they'd be like, oh my God, there's actual alien life. It's coming right towards us. Like, that's a huge thing that NASA actually does want to figure out. It's one of their big missions. So if something was coming towards us like that, wouldn't they sit there and say, oh, here it comes? You know, it's actually happened. It's not just some, you know, bacteria skeletal remains nearly on Mars. It's quite legitimately living life making its way to us. You know, so that would be my statement. That would be my 2 cents on that. The clickbait nowadays is unreal, though. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And we are on to the second to last question of this segment.
And this one goes to Brian Blairstown, who said that Thailand is still not messing around with Cambodia, and I wonder if a ceasefire could be forced. LLT LSA. A ceasefire could be forced, Brian. I believe it can be because we've seen throughout pretty much every conflict the U.S. has jumped into that the U.S. carries a lot of diplomatic pressure and leverage. That's just the nature of the U.S.'s power when it comes to diplomacy. That's because we wield a lot of economic power. And specifically with Thailand and Cambodia, we're threatening them not to come to a trade deal unless both of the sides give in to all the U.S. demands to have an instant ceasefire. So even though some people are saying that we don't trade enough to really, cause enough leverage, it is some leverage. So both sides will probably agree to a ceasefire, but the odds of one holding up after it's forced, and even looking at the track record of our previous ceasefires we negotiated, for example, between Russia and Ukraine, etc., those never hold up. Like they just never do. And this situation won't be any different either, at least in my opinion. So it can be forced, but it won't hold. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, yes, a ceasefire could be forced. Ceasefires can always be forced, but they won't hold. Like Matthew's saying, they won't hold. There are so many ceasefires we attempted to Ukraine that failed within hours of starting them. There are so many ceasefires that we've conducted with the Houthis that have failed. There are so many ceasefires that we've done between Israel and Hamas and Israel and Hezbollah that have also failed, all within this current administration. And we're already seeing that the attacks that we conducted against Iran weren't the one and done Hotel Trivago kind of attacks we were wanting. We're going to have to be going around and attacking them again. And India and Pakistan are going to be going to war again in the future because the whole Indus Water Treaty of 1960 has not been reinstated. So everyone's going to be going to war again, or they've already gone to war again. So we can force a ceasefire, and there is a chance that that could happen. But also, there is a chance that tomorrow the Thai nor the Cambodians may lean into the U.S. pressures, and they may keep this thing going whether the U.S. wanted them to or not. And that is also a decent likelihood as well. I'll be entirely honest, though, it's kind of up in the air. I would lean more towards if the U.S. wasn't trying to force a ceasefire for the age-old Nobel Peace Prize, we probably would see that they will not reach any sort of an amenable conclusion tomorrow, at least in my opinion. But considering that we're looking for the amazing and almighty Nobel Peace Prize, we most likely will try and find a way to force a ceasefire between the two parties, so that way we can try and line up for a Nobel Peace Prize. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But do I personally think that the war between Thailand and Cambodia should stop right now? No, because there's quite clearly no signs that either country wants to stop, and they can only stop when they want to stop. We really can't force them. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on through the rest of the news.
All right, so this one is going to go to Mega, who said, how should American diplomatic relations with China affect their involvement in the Thai-Cambodia conflict?
I believe that generally our relationships with China shouldn't really affect how we're treating the Thai-Cambodian situation for now. If we want to act as a third-party intermediary, that's completely fine by my book, but we can't really force them into a ceasefire. That's the one issue that I have. We can't do that because then we're going to start spoiling the relationship that we have with the Kingdom of Thailand, because we actually do have a pretty friendly relationship with them. And if we start to pressure them to end a conflict that they had a right of self-defense in, then we're going to end up getting them a little angry and a little unhappy with the United States in the future. So I would generally say that we should not really be that involved beyond just telling the Thai, hey, we agree with what you're doing. You got a right to self-defense. Best of luck to you. I think that's really all about we should be doing down in this region at the moment, and we shouldn't be trying to force a ceasefire. That would be my personal foreign policy approach to the situation, because whether people like wars or not, wars are going to happen. This one just started, and it's quite clear that both sides are trying to settle a score, and the Thai are also operating in self-defense, and they have a legal right to do that by international law, and they also have a national right to do that as a sovereign state. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night, and particularly primarily into the Ukraine war here in a minute. But really quickly, folks, I do have to say that within 1 hour and 20 minutes, we have raised $1,436 for the fundraiser, and we are only about $1,000 away from the fundraiser goal, and hopefully, we will be able to hit it. I hope so. Come on, Lee Spring Army, let's hit it. We have never missed a fundraiser goal, and I hope that tonight is not the night that we miss a fundraiser goal in support of Western and American interests around the globe. So hopefully we'll be able to see that we hit that fundraiser goal. I already threw in 100 earlier in the stream to support the fundraiser, and I hope that members of the Lee Spring Army join me. You don't have to match me, you just just have to join me in supporting the fundraiser to be able to get it up to the $2,500 goal to make sure that we are continuing to support Western American interest the best we can here on the channel. And so with that, it's time for us to move on into the remainder of the news for the night. And that's moving us on up into Alaska, where we were able to hear that a Chinese icebreaker has been spotted 130 nautical miles off of the Alaskan coast inside of the U.S. exclusive economic zone in this area, according to the Coast Guard. Wow, that's pretty wild. Moving on from that and on.
What are they researching up there? Just researching our, I guess, researching our national security capabilities? I mean, this seems to be pretty close to our coast there.
I think they're researching our weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it seems like they should probably rename that to a military ship.
Man, I'm telling you, really honestly. And also on top of that, man, I think they're trying to figure out if this thing is actually if there's actually a garden in Nome, and if they call it Garden Nome. I think they're also trying to find that out as well.
Probably so, honestly. They're trying to research that heavily.
Probably so. Also, let's look at the Dredge 7N. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Look, it's one of those little two-story things.
Man, it's one of those two-story things. Two chairs, two chairs. Also, what is the Carrie M. McLean Memorial Museum? Oh, wow, this thing's nice, actually.
That is nice, yeah.
Bro, they run into Nome. Bro, they trying to find them gnomes. You know, I've always heard that those gnomes were real, but I don't know. Anyways, moving on from that now of the Alaskan news, it's time for us to move on down into North Korea. We were able to hear that there is some GPS jamming going on in this area near the inter-Korean maritime border, which is just to the west of Seoul, out here within this area. And we also were able to hear that North Korea, at least according to South Korean intelligence, is preparing to send a larger amount of troops to Russia in August for a large-scale offensive. In exchange for ammunition and missiles, North Korea is expected to receive technical consultations on satellite launches and missile guidance systems. So it appears that the North Koreans are paying handsomely for some consultation efforts by the Russians. Outside of that, and moving into the United States of America, we also were able to hear that the Secretary of State today has made it quite clear that we do not recognize the Maduro government of Venezuela as a legitimate government. Which is quite nice to see. Good to know that we are once again saying that the Venezuelans don't exist as a government. Outside of that, we also got to see that a Chinese satellite took a picture of the Norfolk Naval Shipyard today. And just look at that. It's crazy. The Chinese have finally gotten up to the abilities that the age-old Google Maps system has, because the Chinese put a lot of money into that satellite to go over Norfolk and take a picture of it. I can zoom in right here on Google Maps and look at it almost the exact same. Checkmate. Huh, look at that. We are as good off as Chinese intelligence gathering. Look, you can see the LHDs. You can even see the little vehicles here on deck. Look at that. Like you
it looks like a junkyard the way they're keeping this right here.
It looks like a garbage scow. I'm just kidding, but but still, it's a lot of work going on around here, to say the least. That's why it kind of looks like junk up there. But
it's
beyond
progress.
that, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. But, oh my God, folks, we are falling behind the Chinese. They finally have the ability to make a Google map. Shocking. It's terrible. But moving on from that and on out of that news, it is time for us to move on. Oh, by the way, folks, I do want to make this a little bit clear. As far as satellite photography goes, whoop, big deal. Literally every country in the world that's a major superpower like the United States has satellite reconnaissance. So it's not really that shock. He's like, oh my God, they can take pictures of our shit. It's like, yeah, they can. It's like, that's not really too big of a deal, actually, because you can actually see most of it anyways on Google Maps. And there's not really a lot of other facilities where, you know, you happen to see something classified or confidential or anything like that, even if you had your own satellite. Except for the man array. That was something that was unveiled accidentally by Google Maps. But moving on out of that, and moving on into Europa, we were able to hear some pretty significant news from here. First off, we were able to hear that the Germans are going to be borrowing hundreds of billions of euros for military spending, including weapons for Ukraine, which is absolutely great to hear. Meanwhile, up in the St. Petersburg area, we got to see some more videos of the Russian drills that they're conducting at their miniaturized Navy Day celebrations. Look at this dinghy that they hit with a paintball, I guess. And now it's on fire. And we can also see them firing.
The crazy part is that's a gender reveal in the South. That's not even a military exercise. That the powder exploding on the boat. I mean, people in Alabama do bigger things than that.
I mean, honestly, bro, it's straight up. It's straight up facts. Oh, and look at that. That thing went underwater. Oh, look at that. Oh, look,
not this one again. Not this one.
Wow.
Look at that.
Unbelievable.
Fake explosion. I tell you, that's got to be fake.
Man, filling up the empty barge with explosives? Nuts. Wait a minute, is that the giant explosive thing on top of the ship?
Yeah, what is that? It's like it's held up by camo nets and stuff.
And like plywood.
Yeah, that looks suspicious as hell.
You know what, dude?
Okay,
I just
think
noticed
that
this.
is it.
They also have a plywood patch on the side of the hull for no particular reason, exactly where the drone boat lined up to hit.
I think that's literally like the area they're supposed to go for.
Yeah, so that way it's like a nice pyrotechnic explosion almost to show off the firepower. Let's take a look at it from another angle. Yeah, nah, I'm not believing.
Phony.
Yeah, phony. But that's the end of those clips. What a Navy day. What a Navy day. Bruh. Bruh. Every angle we got of that, it looked more and more cap, honestly. But moving on from that and down into the southern regions of the Russian Federation, we were able to hear near to the area of the Zhitovo railway station, there was quite some significant damage caused by Ukrainian drone attacks. You could see it right there. That's tough. We also were able to see another clip showing the damage at the facilities here within the city of Zhitovo. They had to play romantic piano music over it because it was sad. But when you see some of
They have insulation in these Russian homes right here. It's like insulation all over the ground. Oh look, he's going to try to pawn that. No, you can't pawn that, sir. That's broken. Please leave that be.
Dude, he said, dude, this can grab me like 30 rubles at my nearest pawn shop. They'll buy me like some a molecule of oxygen, bleed.
Just destruction. I mean, look at those. Fires everywhere. Oh, look, the track got ripped up.
Yeah, the track actually got split. Like, that's actually pretty shocking. But man, that station was blitzed.
That is terrible. Does this make you hurt like down deep because this was a train station?
Not really. I'm not really a particularly big fan of Russian trains. I think they're terrible looking.
Yeah. Well, you got to at least cry a few tears for the broken road or railroad.
I'll tell you one thing, though. I will cry if the Union Pacific Norfolk Southern merger goes through and it succeeds. I am going to weep greatly. But outside of that, we can see that this station did take a lot of damage. Holy moly,
cow.
BC Skyman
showed up. He's coming in and saving the day, throwing in a $250. Look at that. We are now less than $500 to the goal, thanks to BC Skyman. And also, hello, BC Skyman. It's good to see you once again. Big entrance, by the way.
Welcome back, BC Skyman. Unbelievable. $250 donation. That is the largest one of the night, and that is getting us within shooting range of the fundraiser goal of $2,500. Can we hit $2,500 tonight, folks, for this amazing fundraiser? What are the charges? Supporting the fundraiser? Supporting a succulent fundraiser day? And yes, it is. And please, folks, support! We want to hit the goal. We really do. It's a big thing. It's a big thing on this channel. We've never missed a fundraiser goal. We can't miss a fundraiser goal. We can't do it. Come on, folks. Let's hit it. But anyways, moving on from that and on down into Rostov-na-Donu, we also got to see some billowing fires coming out of the Rostov area. Ooh, smoky.
Rostov on fire.
Oh!
Rostov an explosion. Oh, look at that barky bark dog just throwing a 100. We're creeping close to the goal. I tell you what, we're moving there quick.
Yeah, we're moving on up. We're moving on up in the world. We're at $2,114. We're $386 away from that fundraiser goal. Can we hit it, folks? Yes, we can, like Bob the Damn Builder. But moving on from that and on down the way, we also got to see some drones over southern Russia. And holy smokes, folks, I think we're actually about to hit that fundraiser goal here really soon. Holy moly!
Oh, they got it good.
Bro, who was that guy in the background who literally shredded his vocal cords? He went, listen to him. Bro, yo.
Jeez, man.
Bro, that guy.
And this is their own stuff exploding, right? Why are they screaming and yelling and stuff?
Oh, it was a Ukrainian drone that they did manage to shoot down. So,
oh, that's why. Oh, they're happy they got one drone.
Oh
my God!
Holy
look! BC Skyman is throwing a 200.
Did
we hit the goal?
We are close. We are at 2,300.
Holy cow!
Oh
my God!
Oh my God!
We hit the
Nicholas
goal!
Condor!
Yeah!
We did it!
The goal, baby! Let's go!
We did it! They had us in the first half, I'm not going to lie. Holy smokes, I thought we actually were going to hit the fundraiser goal tonight. But the Least Spring Army pulled through, and we once again hit another $2.5 thousand fundraiser goal for none other than Razum for Ukraine. A wonderful thing, an amazing thing. And I gotta say, a big thanks and congratulations to all of the top donors and all of the donors that we weren't able to call out, because the Least Spring Army has once again shown that it is in support of Western American interests and that we ain't going nowhere. And so a big shout out to all of you once again. And with that, none of you, we're going to be moving else into this news that we got from the Ukraines. And so moving on into the Crimea area, we get to see this fire on the Yekaterinburg-Simferopol highway.
Holy smokes, we just got a 300 from Hal Rose coming in
Holy
hot.
moly, dude, we're actually going well above 2.5. We're almost at 3. We're almost at $3,000. Oh, hold up, folks, I gotta hit it well. Y'all gonna get help in Ukraine. Oh, lordy. But anyways, moving on from that. Oh, that's where the fire started. It was this car.
Oh wow, that was the whole thing. And it's what kind of car even is it? It's a Chevy. Is that a Chevy?
Is that a Chevy Malibu?
That looks like a Ford Focus, but it's got like a Chevy badge on the back. Is this a Fate?
I don't know. It could be a counterfeit Chevy. Oh my god. Bro, the air literally turned toxic.
Look at that. That's like the yellow like fumes they put on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. You don't want to walk into that, you get really choked.
Bruh, everybody playing their chill rap beats. Oh my god, that actually was like a pretty significant fire from that one car.
Once they gained an audience too, they wanted to stop and take a look, you know, these arsonists.
Bro, these sightseers. Look at this.
Ужас, я уезжаю, потому что очень опасно. Начался сильный пожар, Андрей. Смотри, что происходит.
Damn. Well, moving on from that. What a crazy clip. We also got to see this drone getting shot down near Odessa. Amazing stuff. Moving on from that and on up into our frontline news, we also got to hear within the Sumy region that the Russians are saying their positionings are weakening in this area. The situation on the Sumy front is deteriorating. After Ukrainian forces captured King Trativka, enemy assault groups launched an attack on the next village, Alexivka. Currently, special operations units has been deployed to Alexivka, which is already seriously complicated operations in this area. Regardless of how one feels about the enemy special forces, these are the most well-trained units. In addition to them, a huge number of assault troops from the 425th Separate Assault Regiment are operating in the sector. So many have been transferred here, as a couple of companies from the 425th SAR have started being redeployed to the Kharkiv region to stabilize the Venezuelan direction. I've never heard of that one. Therefore, the situation is extremely difficult at the moment. Fighting is ongoing, and the enemy is pressing not only with numbers, but also with quality, not to mention the number of UAVs also being used to strike our fighters. In short, it's not going well. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we also get to see this Ukrainian MiG-29 in this beautiful picture.
Very nice. I like the livery on that. Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sadly, no.
Oh, damn. Well, that livery is really busting right there. I like that.
Man, I'm telling you. And this is all coming from, by the way, folks, a little bit of news that we've been able to hear over the course of the day, where it appears the United States is about to bring down the hammer on the Russian Federation. The President of the United States and the Secretary of State today have stated that they believe that a peace is not necessarily achievable with the Russian Federation, and that sanctions may be coming faster than the 50-day deadline that was laid out prior. And a lot of people have been talking about that today. Is the boom coming down on the Russians? Are they about to get the hurt? Are they about to get the pain? The suffering, maybe? Are they about to get the full Americana with no sugar and cream? What is about to happen to the Russians? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? What are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So it says U.S. officials say Putin is no longer willing to end the war, and the U.S. will change strategy very soon when dealing with Vladimir Putin. And what are your thoughts? 45% said the U.S. will come down on Russia pretty hard, while 30% said the U.S. will remain on the fence, and 19% said this is impossible to predict. And this one right here is something that's been coming for a long time. And I understand people are frustrated. It's taking a very long time to get to this point. And I will agree, it has taken way too long to get here. But the U.S. has no option at this point but to put sanctions on Russia along with the EU to do the same thing because Putin is not willing to negotiate at all. I heard an article today, and I wasn't very sure about the veracity of it, so we didn't report it. But there was rumors out there that the U.S. had allegedly offered to give up some Ukrainian territory to Russia in order to end this thing quickly. And Putin even allegedly refused that as well. So if that's true, that indicates how badly Putin is willing not to negotiate. And that might explain behind the scenes why all of a sudden everything broke down so quickly because the U.S. saw, well, damn, he won't even take Ukrainian territory in exchange for a ceasefire. He's not going to agree to anything. So in my opinion, I believe the U.S. is going to put sanctions on Russia. We're also going to try to crush their energy industry. And if you go back all the way back to January, I actually put out a video here on the channel explaining that. And it looked like it wasn't going to happen, but it looks now like more likely than not that the U.S. is going to change strategy, which means they're going to put the hurt on Russia in 2 more weeks. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be honest with y'all. I think the boom's coming down on the Russians. There is really not a lot of options, like Matthew was saying, that could be implemented by the United States of America against the Russian Federation if they're not willing to end the war. All we have to do is further our support for the state of Ukraine, and not only that, further sanction the Russian Federation as well. So for that reason, I have a feeling that the U.S. is going to be bringing down the boom mic on the Russians, and it's going to be hurting them greatly. It's going to be like that time that mayor up in Canada got that camera slammed right in his face, and it was caught on live TV. Don't you remember that, Matthew, when that happened back in the day in like Toronto or something?
I think so. I think I remember that.
Man, I remember that. That guy was a character right there, a real character. But I have a feeling that it's going to be something along those lines that will happen to the Russians. But really, to actually give details of what it will look like, the sanctions will be a little bit more significant than prior. It's pretty much just going to be ensuring that no Russian petroleum and gas products are able to make it out of Russia at all without serious sanctions following for whoever is taking possession of those products. And that generally will be the large sweeping breadth of those sanctions. It'll be completely blocking the Russians from doing any trade with their petroleum and oil products. So practically destroying their economy. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And moving on from that and on into our location unknowns once more, we were able to get the Russian casualty report. Oh, no Bobcats.
Oh, 0 Bobcats. Absolutely none. I guess they've gone extinct for good.
Man, they've gone missing. But Miss Disa, keeper of the record, said the drop in losses, except for drones, vehicle losses remain above the 7-day average. And that they do. With 920 vehicles, 920 Russian soldiers being wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 4 APCs, 122 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 10 artillery pieces, 200 drones, 1 MLRS, and 11 cruise missiles. All in all, today was not the most exemplary day in terms of losses, but it was still a decent day. Moving on from that and on out of the casualty report, it's time for us to make it on down into the front lines themselves. And we have not really been able to hear a lot out of the Kupiansk front. The Ukrainians are still conducting defensives within this area, but it doesn't appear that the Russians have been able to break through most of the Ukrainian defensive lines up here in this area. It also appears that the central line near Svatove is also incredibly quiet, but we were able to get a little bit more video and picture evidence out of the Severonsky Forest, once again showing us that fighting is heavy, at least within this general area. We're going to be muting the music. I don't know why, but this looks like something straight out of a Slender Man creepypasta or the Blair Witch Project with like the quality of this camera. But we can see them continuing to fight inside the woods against the Russians. So far, the Russians have just never really been able to make it out of these woods. I guess you could say the Russians aren't out of the woods just yet. Get it? It's a pun. It's funny. But moving on from that and on out of that little bit of news, and further on down the line towards the area of the Seversk battlefield, we also were able to see that a Russian assault was thwarted earlier today. This is actually the Russian assault column making its way out of Lysychansk on the southern side of the Severodonetsk River. And we can already see that there is a lot of equipment that is involved in these assault columns, which are quite large in nature, that are attempting to break through the fields and towards to the city of Seversk. We see a great deal of these vehicles are being directly targeted and destroyed by the Ukrainian drone and artillery attacks that are continuing to harass the column as they make their way towards the village of Seversk and Bila Orivka. I gotta tell you, folks, I didn't think about it before the stream, but I gotta be honest with you, Matthew, the food we ate, it doesn't really hold me over for long.
Man, you gotta have some serious calories.
Man, honestly.
What is this? What the hell? What is
That's
that,
a
a street
shed.
sweeper?
That's a shed with a mine roller on it. And it just got taken out almost. So it looks like it's still rolling on. It's a slideshow at the moment, but it's still rolling on, kind of. It got hit again.
Wow, they just like flung a rod from God on that thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. What like that? What like that? And we see them flinging a drone on down at a Russian soldier right there. Once again, the assault columns are just getting bogged down in the fields. They just can't make it to Seversk. We can see that a lot of the soldiers are continuing on pretty much on dirt bikes at this point. And, of course, that's about a fail as well. Those never succeed. And Heather Fitzgibbon said, need to keep crackers and cheese handy. Honestly, you know, I think I'd agree with that. Cheese and crackers would be pretty good right now. Peanut butter and apple, that's a pretty good option as well. Great options, folks. You're coming up with great ideas here. But we can see the Russians continuing to get hammered by the Ukrainian drone and artillery forces. And AF Kaplan said, mixed nuts are also a great snack. I'm sorry, I don't like mixed nuts. Only the hot dog man likes those. And I personally, I'm not a big fan. But anyways, you see oh my goodness, man, a Russian shed got hit. The fuel tank caught on fire, and it turned into Hell Rider for a couple of seconds.
Oh, man. That thing is like, look at that thing smoking and flaming. And look at how it stopped so quick, too. They must have had the chance to stomp the brakes.
Oh. Bro, that thing cooked. Let him cook.
Someone said it's a Zamboni. I guess you could say that's out here on the ice rink.
Man, I guess you could say call it a Zamboni because that thing be getting iced for real.
Man, I tell you. It's like the killing field.
And out of all of the vehicles that were involved in these two assault columns, only one MTLB, one MT Rapira, and one Buhanka was able to survive the entire failed assault. So all of the equipment that entered the assault, which is seen on screen here in red, was destroyed in the fields in the attack today.
So basically, pretty much everything of value got destroyed.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, an MTLB isn't really worth anything. It's, you know, they can take that out later. But once again, giving you an idea of the high casualties that are being taken by Russian forces in the fields near Seversk. We also got to see another clip of the drones that were being used to hit the Zambonis out in the fields around Seversk today in this failed assault.
This looks like the area which they have the Windows screensaver being taken a picture of or something.
Honestly, man, down there, it looks like that's where the Teletubbies live.
This is the Windows 95 opening screen.
Bruh, I'm telling you, bro. Let me go pull this up. Teletubbies. Hold up. Let me go get this, folks. I gotta go get this. This is very important. It literally dang it. Hold up. Let me bring that down off screen. It literally looks like this, dude. Like where the Teletubbies are at. That's what it looks like.
It kind of does, but only these things right here don't look like Russians, though.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. The Teletubbies are actually terrifying. Like these were nightmare fuel for me when I was a kid. Something about them is uncanny and unnatural.
They said that these right here were trying to condition the people to get ready for the aliens, so they brought these fellows in to get them ready for it.
I don't know, man, but these things scare the shit out of me. Like, look at that thing.
That does look kind of sketchy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, jeez, dude. Every time I look at the Teletubbies, they still kind of like they're off-putting. Like, I don't know how to put my finger on it, but they're off-putting. Anyways, these tanks were getting blown up in Teletubby land.
Oh man, Teletubby. That's what they say whenever an insubordinate in the Russian military wants to tell their commander what happened on the battlefield. They say, "Go tell a Tubby."
Man, bruh, that was a pretty good one.
Go tell a fatty.
Man, they slamming them. Look at them. They're about
Look
to
at another Zamboni again. Look at that.
Bam.
It's like a combine harvester out here. Look at it. It's just out of control. So look, it's going off the beaten path now.
With a mine roller. This one also has a mine roller. Well, that's the end of the clip right there, but dang. That's one hell of an outro, by the way. I've never seen that one before. But moving on from that, and on further on down the line towards Solidar, which is just south of that, we also were able to see the 30th Mechanized Brigade, which has been in this area for literally the entire war, hitting the Russian forces outside of Solidar. Also, I see that apparently there's a debate in the chat as to whether Teletubbies are off-putting or not. I'm still in the camp, they're off-putting. I see some people like, the Teletubbies are cool. I just don't think so, y'all. I'm so sorry to people who do like them, but yeah, I don't know. Oh. And then you got a Ural right there at the end of the clip. But that's the end of the clip right there. And moving on from that and down towards Kudymivka, we also got to see the Russian army in full force today. Are y'all ready for what y'all are about to witness? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the clip.
Oh, no.
Туда вон, там гараж есть.
Oh, my God.
Туда вон, подальше.
No. Wait a minute, what's on the back?
Well, you'll see. It's body bags.
Oh, I thought it was supplies for a minute, but it is what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's body bags, folks. This is actually how they're extricating remains from the battlefield now. They put them in this box, they tie them with a piece of string to the back of a dirt bike, and they literally just drag them out.
That's terrible.
Yeah, pretty messed up, actually. And off they go. I guess if it hits a rock, they just flip the body bag out of the little bucket that they've made for it. Very messed up stuff. But anyways, moving on from that and further down the line into the area of the Pokrovsk front, we also get to see another North Korean Koksan SPG getting destroyed by Ukrainian forces today. You can actually see the Koksan firing down there. You can tell because North Korean cartridges use black powder only. You can clearly see that. And it clearly gave it away. So now they're going to destroy it. And there we go. The hit was confirmed. And any second now, the Koksan will cook. Oh, look, there's a little fire over there in the trees. And there we go. The Koksan is cooking. Look at it go. Nice and warm. It's a warm fire. As they call it, a warm hearth. And we all love a warm hearth, don't we, folks? We love one. Well,
They better be lucky that stuff's green, because otherwise it would start a pretty bad forest fire, probably.
bro, like that one down in Crimea. But anyways, moving on from that, that is actually all of the news that we have for today. And some of y'all might be shocked by that because you're like, what about a speech from the president of Ukraine? We actually were not able to get one today because he is apparently out on business somewhere doing something. So we were not able to get a speech from the president of Ukraine today to be able to have a halftime show. So for that purpose, we're going to be moving directly into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks. Is it a fun segment? We get to talk about literally anything and everything. And considering that tonight was a fundraiser night tonight, and I believe that we made it through all of the super chats, we are able to get entirely into the live chats. We get to talk to y'all, and it's a fun time because we can talk about anything. So, Matthew, please tell us, what are folks saying in the chat? And also, I understand that you've run another poll on
Yes.
Austria now considering that NATO membership. And what are people thinking about it, Matthew? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we do have one more poll to get to, and it's currently running right now. About 1,000 people have voted on it so far, and the question is, Austria is now considering NATO membership due to Russia's recent escalations in Europe, and what are your thoughts? And it looks like about 74%, the overwhelming majority, said more NATO members equals good, while 9% said more NATO members equals bad, and 11% said it really doesn't matter. And I would say one thing that is a bit concerning about this, first of all, I don't have a problem with more NATO members. More NATO members is good. That means a much stronger collective defense, which is the entire purpose of NATO existing in the first place. So I would say that's good. But the disturbing part is countries that were typically considered neutral, or at least they tried to be neutral, are now considering becoming unneutral because they're getting so concerned about war breaking out. And these countries have been neutral for quite some long time. And in fact, let's see here. How long has Austria been neutral? Let's find that out right now. So it looks like, it looks like, generally speaking, they've been neutral for a long time, but right off the bat, can't see. I'll have to let the enforcer give us some history on that one. But they've been neutral for a little bit. And I would say that I would welcome them to NATO personally. So I'd be with the 74%. But enforcer, what say you?
Oh, they've been historically neutral forever. Actually, ever since the end of World War II, they've never been a part of NATO, and they've never wanted to be. So, yeah, that's generally the run of the land with them. They're actually a little bit understated. All jokes aside, they're actually a little understated because they're pretty much as neutral as Switzerland historically. But recently they've started to get a lot more Western, pro-Western. So I would have to say that I think that more NATO members is a good thing. It's never a bad thing. And I think that we should bring in another NATO member in the form of Austria. And who could disagree? The Austrians have such a beautiful country with such a rich culture and history. There are all kinds of people from here. Just don't ask about the artists that failed art school. Those are the people we don't talk about who come from Austria, because those weren't really the greatest people. But if you look at the rest of the country, it is actually pretty cool. And they have a lot of great people who have come from places like Vienna, which is a famous city historically. And not only that, have y'all seen the natural beauty and landscape of the national parks that they have in this area of the country? Let me show you. Let me show you. You don't believe me, do you? Well, let me show you. Look at this. This is Austria.
Austria is beautiful. It's a very natural looking country. It looks fantastic.
It is a very natural looking country. And of course, one of the big tourist attractions here in Austria is the city, and I have to go down here, of Innsbruck, which is right in the middle of the Alps. Look at that. It's crazy. Such a nice city in the middle of the Alps. Look at this. The views, they're astonishing. And to think we could have this in our military alliance. Now that is something worthwhile. That's really honestly.
That would be something right there. What kind of military power do they have, though, standing right now?
Oh, well, it's not really a big one, but it's still a decent one. Austrian Army equipment. Well, let's go find this here. So let's find it. They have some really cool camouflages, as you can see. Very cool. Very cool. But moving on from that, we got to get into the equipment. Of course, they use nothing but Glocks because they're the home of Glock, so that would make sense.
That's nice. They got literally every model of Glock. Glock 17, Glock 26, Glock 21. They've got the entire index of Glock in their military. That's very nice.
They also have the P90, which is pretty cool, from Belgium, not from Austria. Then they also have the Steyr AUG, which is from Austria. They also have all of the different AUGs. They also have the Rheinmetall MG3, which is the spiritual successor of the buzzsaw that all of y'all know from World War II. This is just a rechambered version of the MG42. They rechambered it from 7.92 to 7.62 by 51. So that's really the only difference. And also the fire rate was decreased a little bit as well. They also have the FN Mag, and of course they have the heavy M2. Everyone has to have a heavy M2. They also have the Steyr SSG-69. Some people would call this a hunting rifle. People in Austria call this a weapon of death. They also have the H&K 417, which is very nice.
Oh, man. I tell you, these people right here in Austria, they've got a very nice package of weapons here. I tell you what, they've got the best stuff coming right across the border from Germany.
They also have, these also are Steyr SSG 08s. And then, just in case if they were going up against, like the Boogeyman or, the Skinwalker, as some people call it, they also have the Baron M82, which is a 50 caliber semi-automatic sniper rifle from the United States of America, of course, from the Barrett Company. So they also have the Remington Model 870, which is generally used in the Jagdkommando, which is their, the best way to describe it is their special forces, but the whole Jagdkommando, it's like light commandos. That's the actual translation of what that would be. But anyways, moving on from that, they also have the FN FAL as their ceremonial rifle, which me personally being a big fan of the FAL, I think this thing is clean. Also, Matthew, you will notice this is actually the very one that I have, like the same bipod, the front handguard, the muzzle brake, same. The only thing different is the stock. Pretty cool though.
That is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Are you sleepy?
No, I was just taking a little drink of water.
Oh, we also got to see that they have the Bill from Sweden. They also have the Carl Gustaf, which is a big thing of mine. I love the recoilless rifles of the Carl Gustaf variety. They have some decent mortars. They also have some SPGs. They have some M109s. This is an Austrian M109. They have 30 of these, which isn't really a lot. But they also have some support M109s, the command variety, to support their artillery batteries. They have some Leopard 2A4s, which you can see right here. Those are pretty decent. They also have these, the Ascod, which is like a CV90, but for Austria, which is pretty neat. I like these. They're cool. They also have the Pander 1, which is an APC. It's interesting. I'm not really a big fan of that one. They also have the Pander Evolution. Look at that. That's like a Rosamac or something.
That's a top-heavy one right there.
Honestly, it's kind of like an LEV or a Striker almost, you know? Like,
It's very top-heavy.
Striker APC. It almost looks like that. But
yeah, it's just the proportions are a little out of whack.
Yeah, it's very stubby looking. They also have these from Sweden. We've seen these in Ukraine before. They're weird. But they're amphibious also. They also have the Dingo, just in case you forgot about those yet. Dingo. They also have a couple of other Dingos and the Vecos. But moving on down into the cool stuff, they also have some armored recovery vehicles. They also have, some of this, some of that. They have the little mine clearers from Croatia. Let's see here. I'm trying to get to their artillery, though. The rocket art. Well, actually, I think we already passed the artillery. Yeah, all of this is support vehicles, and they like support vehicles. They've got a lot of them. But then we have to look also at the Austrian Air Force, because that's really the only other branch in Austria that's important. So let's take a look at the Austrian Air Force. They have 15 Eurofighter Typhoons and 12 Alani Armaci M346s on order. And they're cute.
Those right there don't look like they're very capable. They look almost like trainers or something.
They're pretty much trainers, but technically they can use them in combat if they wanted to. They then have some transports, which are mostly PC-6s, which aren't really transports, and a few C-130s. It's a smaller army, to put that out there. It's a smaller army, but they make up for the small size in the quality of their army, and it's well trained as well. So as far as having them as a NATO ally, it couldn't hurt. It can only help. So with that, I hope that does address that well, the best I can, at least on the material side of things, and looking at the material side of things, and I hope we made it quite clear that they are a cool army. And also they have a cool country as well. Have I told you all that? I think I did. I told you all that they had a cool country, but I have to tell you all again. They have a city called Wiener Neustadt. Isn't that funny? Isn't that cool? Like, look at it. It's a little town, a little city. Look at this. I'll drop you all down in here. Look at this place. It's nice.
Seems like a nice place.
Yes, it's nice. It's nice. And then look at this. You go to Vienna in Austria, and you go out here. So the Innenstadt, which is the inner city. They literally called it the inner city. I just realized that. That's the inner city. Like, that's actually what that is. Anyways, let's drop down. Let's take a little look. Oh, look at this. Very clean.
Looks pretty clean. Looks pretty nice. I like the cleanliness of it. You got to appreciate that.
I mean, this is actually really clean. Oh, they have palmers.
I was interested by the blue tomato, whatever the hell that was back there. That was kind of interesting. Looked like a restaurant or something.
Well, I thought that was a Zamboni for a second. Let's go back here. The blue tomato. Where did you see that? Oh, this?
Yeah, that right there. Oh, it's a clothing store or something. That's weird. I thought it was a restaurant.
Bro, they got Carhartt in there.
I've got everything. They've got
Nixon.
Nike, they've got Oakley, they've got Nixon. I'm not a
Wiretap
cook. They've got Herschel. They got everything in here. A little bit of everything for you.
I thought it was a restaurant, honestly. Let's see here. Let's what is the GDP of Austria? Oh wow. It's not as much as Switzerland. Switzerland's almost up to a $900 billion GDP. They're about to become a $1 trillion economy here in the near future, which is actually really shocking for a country with only, I think, 8.5 million people living in it. But still, Austria isn't doing that bad. It's at 500 billion, so it's actually got the same economic size as Thailand does. Interestingly enough, they're actually economically on par. So very interesting with that. Very interesting with that. But they do have a very low fertility rate of 1.4. which is pretty rough. You know what is Thailand's fertility? You know, I'm interested in that now. Let's see. Let me pull it up all screen just in case if it pulls up any weird pictures. Most of you don't know, the perfect replacement for fertility rate is, oh my god, Thailand has a fertility rate of 1.3.
Is that high?
That's very low, because to even just maintain the population you have right now, you have to have a fertility rate of 2. If you have anything lower than 2, because, you know, to speak about it in very clinical terms, for a breeding pair to replace itself, you have to have 2 offspring per breeding pair, because it takes, one man and 1 woman to, have offspring. So you have to have exactly 2 offspring, or really 2.1 technically, but generally 2, if you want to make it simple. You have to have 2 offspring for every breeding pair. So if you have anything less than 2, you're starting to see a population decline. And at 1.3, that actually means that your population is like literally obliterated. It's like taking a nuclear bomb, and it's going to be rapidly shrinking. But that's actually an issue that's happening all around the world, just to make that clear for people, because you'll generally see in most countries, even like in China, right here, look at this, 1.18. That is insanely abysmal.
That is so low. I wonder why the people aren't having children. That's just astonishing to me.
Yeah, and Japan has a 1.2, just in case you're wondering how bad the fertility rates matter. Oh, well, how much they matter. They matter a lot. And if the fertility rate's around near to a 1, it's like a near-apocalyptic population scenario, because I'll show you what this is looking like right now for China just over the past few years. Look at that. They're actually leveling out. They're actually starting to drop off. India, on the other hand, is not. But their fertility rate is also mental, at quite literally a 2.01. So they're actually doing somewhat decent for themselves. But because of that, they're also going to start leveling out here in the near future as well. And then here in the US of A, we have a fertility rate of 1.66. So it's actually kind of close to almost being 2, but it's still a little bit low. So if you ever look at the US population graph and you notice the growth, right here, most of that growth is actually because of immigration. Very little of it is, well, actually none of it is from actual natural population growth. Pretty much all of our population growth from about 1965 onwards is because of immigration to the United States, which is a little interesting, because a lot of people make it, the whole thing with immigration as far as population metrics are concerned is a little bit touchy, so I can't get into it for political reasons, but it's actually a very nuanced sort of a thing, and you can make arguments on both sides that make sense and have good merit to them, but there's also a lot of other things that in play that are nuanced on the technical side of running a country or administering a country that makes that a little difficult. But beyond that, let's go look at the UK. Also, by the way, if y'all don't know, fertility rates are so bad these days. The fertility rate here is 1.57, so very close to the United States. Fertility rates are dropping so badly around the world that Kim Jong-un actually went on the national TV in North Korea and cried and wept, because the fertility rate in North Korea, even according to their own government, has reached 1.3. So even in North Korea, they're not having kids. So it's really an international crisis, no matter what country you're in, for the most part.
That is crazy. Me personally, I think it's because the people aren't having kids and children is because they got to work too much. They don't have time for all the other business because they're too busy working. They're too tired.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, people in the Victorian era, though, were working like 16-hour work days, literally, and they were having kids. It's like, honestly, man, I think it's something else. I don't want to say
Well,
this,
money,
folks.
they can't afford it either.
Well, I don't. Well, I mean, people back then were poverty-stricken and they were having kids. I mean, like, most people lived in poverty and they were still having kids back then. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, folks, but I actually think it has something to do with the microplastics in the water, like, that are starting to be known now that that's an issue. I think that might actually be messing with people's natural balances in their body, or maybe stopping some sort of natural psychological process from happening to where people want to have kids. Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's pretty straightforward economic issues because nobody can afford to even live hardly single these days. So how the hell are you going to afford childcare? Because if you have two individuals, a man and wife, how are they going to pay for childcare if they both have to go work? Childcare is crazy expensive. They can barely afford their car payment or barely afford to eat. on two different incomes, not just one person with one income. That's two people on two incomes. They can barely afford the essentials. Then they can't afford the childcare. Honestly, it does make financial sense to have a kid these days on a normal income.
I mean, it probably is more so financial. But at the same time, though, when you think about it, people back then used to have kids out the wazoo, and a lot of them were impoverished. And also on top of that, if you look at, for example, any African country, because most African countries have a very high fertility rate at the moment. Literally, almost everyone in Africa is living in poverty, and that doesn't stop them from having kids. So it's like, what's stopping everyone else in the world from having kids? I mean, like financially compared to any average family in Africa or a breeding pair in Africa, literally any other breeding pair in any other corner of the globe, even here in America, has a far better situation than any breeding pair in Africa. So why in the world are we not, as breeding pairs in the United States, having such a high number of kids, but in Africa there's still a high fertility rate to be seen? So
Well,
that's
the difference is for Americans, we have to buy cars because our workplace is across the entire town. So you have to drive like 10 or 20 miles out to go get to your work. In other countries, you walk down the street to your work, and that's typically where you make your money. And also, the price of living there is not so expensive. So while jobs may be harder to come by, it's easier to get a job, be able to support yourself than it is in America because everything's so expensive here.
maybe so. Um, it's an interesting issue. It's actually one that's a pretty significant one, and it might end up causing some very major issues down the line in the future. But nevertheless, with that, we are going to get on back into and taking some of y'all's questions. Bless me, damn.
Oh, bless you.
Also, by the way, man, do we have the list of top donors before we get into those questions? To be able to give a shout out to all the folks who helped to hit that fundraiser goal, and not only that, bring us up to a whopping $3,190 raised on this fundraiser.
Yes, indeed. And we do have our list of top donors right here. And to call them off right now, we did have a $333 donation for, of course, Hal Rose. That's a trademark donation right there. And a huge shout out to Hal for that very generous donation. We also had a 300 from BC Skyman, who I believe just left for the night, actually. And also, thank you for stopping by, BC, and throwing in that massive support to the fundraiser as well. We do appreciate that very much. Also, Nicholas Conner threw in a 250, along with BC Skyman, who threw in a 200 as well, in addition to the other one. Also, humongous support at the fundraiser. We also had a 100 from Barky Bark Dog, as well as a 100 from Greg Carrier, and a 50 from Trister1. And those are the top donors since the last time we called them off. So, Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to give a huge shout out and thanks to everyone who supported the fundraiser tonight, to all the folks we can call out and all the folks that we cannot call out. We are massively thankful and appreciative to each and every one of y'all, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this fundraiser possible, and we wouldn't be able to see that the entirety of the Lee Spring Army banded together again for another Sunday to send more support towards American and Western interest in Ukraine. I've got to thank you incredibly once again to all of y'all for that, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to make sure the Lee Spring Army continues to stand strong and continues to support American and Western interests. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the question segments themselves and to get a chit chat with all of y'all. And I see some people saying all kinds of things. And I actually saw someone bring up a good question. And since we have one last super chat that came in, it was a $5 super chat from Brian Gonzalez. And Brian Gonzalez said, "Why is the fertility rate a crisis? Was there not a point in time when there were less people on the planet? Was there rampant economic collapse?" Well, at least actually there was a time where there was a drastic population collapse, which was actually during the Black Plague in Europe, which actually ended up killing off about a third of the population. The thing is that back then, though, it wasn't an industrialized economy. It was an agrarian society, or an agrarian economy. And because of that, the lack of workers, or the lack of population, actually ended up benefiting the remaining people who survived. It's a little bit opposite of that in a modern industrial world, because in a modern industrial world, a country's success is completely limited to their economic output, or more so their ability to produce services or goods in mass. And so if you see a drop in population numbers, at least in a modern industrialized age, that actually results directly in the loss of generally market cap, honestly, because if you lose a great deal of workers, there's no one to be able to work in these companies to either produce the amount of goods or services possible, and so you have to start cutting back production, which means that you're not as present on the global trading stage or economic stage as you were before. The thing with that, however, is that that's pretty much already going to become a non-issue, and this is also something that a lot of people may not know. because of AI and also a lot of the new automation that we're seeing. Because of that new automation and the introduction of AI, the fertility rates can drop and the population can just start to plummet globally. And generally, a lot of a nation's ability to outproduce another and to be more dominant in trade will still exist. And even in the United States, that doesn't even really matter too much because we're more so a services-based economy. We're a post-industrial economy, but we still have a heavy industrial base. We make up 23% of all global manufacturing still. So that generally is where in the issue lies in the modern industrialized world where it would cause financial trouble. Because if you look at Japan, like I can pull up Japan fertility rate right here, which has never really been that good. Like in the 70s, it actually hit above the twos, but after that, it dropped off pretty rapidly, kind of like everyone else's. But let me show you their GDP, GDP of Japan. And so, well, actually, we don't want that one. We want this one. We want the total GDP. And you'll notice that after their population started to grow in the well, actually, let me go pull up the population in Japan as well to show this off the best I can with all the graphs lined up with each other. So you'll see that in the 70s, as all of these children were being born, they would then grow up. They added a lot to the population. And then in the 80s, their economy started to skyrocket because their population was growing. It started adding market cap in the amount of potential labor and the amount of potential goods and services that could be produced. And as a result of that, Japan's GDP started to skyrocket massively. But once they started to hit that really low fertility rate around the 90s, about right here, you'll start to see that their population started to stabilize and then later decline. And as their population has been declining, you'll actually notice that their GDP is also stagnated and is starting to decline as well, because they just don't have the existent labor potential there to be able to keep up that GDP growth or that sort of economic progress that they had in the past. Not to say that Japan's a shithole, like it's actually a pretty decent place, but still at the same time, as far as their economic potential, and for that reason, their global standing in the world, and also their, I guess even if you want to call it for Japan, which doesn't exist, their military presence is starting to diminish because of that dropping population figure. And you can actually see that well represented in all of these graphs when you line them up together. It actually paints the story of Japan in the modern day on that side of things. So with that, I hope that does address that well, because generally in most other periods, go ahead.
Now, let me give you the numbers here to support the economic theory here that I'm coming up with. So in 2025, the total annual cost of raising a child, this is one child in the U.S., ranges from $21,000 to $30,000 per child in 2025. The average household income is $80,000 in 2023. Take taxes out of that. I'm not good at math in my head. So let's just say you take taxes out and it's about 70,000, 65,000 maybe after taxes. That might be a little bit too conservative, but let's say, I don't know, let's say 70,000, just make it easy. So deduct about 30,000 out of that for the kid. So 70 minus 30. So you got $40,000. So $40,000 has to be stretched between the mother and the father to live. And of course, if you want a house, you got to have a house payment. If you got a car, you got to have a car payment. You got insurance. You got all your normal expenses and things like that. That's a tough situation to be in right there. And that's why I think a lot of people are deciding, no kids for me. I'm going to just pass on that because they just can't afford it, or it's going to stretch them too thin.
Possibly so. I mean, that could be a pretty major part of the issue. But then again, though, in other countries where that wouldn't necessarily be an issue, like, for example, the People's Republic of China, even after the one-child policy ended, they're still not having kids. And in China, considering all of the sorts of safety nets they have, you would think they would have a decent fertility rate. Or in Russia, which is literally a welfare state, they are down to 1.4.
Interesting. Also, I see JamFan saying something else you guys need to consider is the ramifications of, women having babies and then the men get caught up in a bad situation, things like that. And basically what he's saying is people are turned off of marriage nowadays. I think that's what he's trying to say here. Honestly, I would agree with that as well. It's a problem in America that apparently marriage isn't being valued the way it used to be valued, and it's very flexible to the point where divorces are extremely common. It's somewhat normalized now to cheat in marriages, And it seems to be that young people really don't value it whatsoever. The problem these days is people, I saw someone say in the chat earlier, people go around having these non-marital relationships constantly. And it turns out bad because they're not married, and that creates a lot of problems legally and all kinds of other things. And then sometimes people don't have kids at all. It's just the act without the kids and no marriage, which is not good either, in my opinion. That creates non-family oriented households. It sort of breaks down morals. It's not good in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to say it's a little bit of a rough situation with all of that sort of a deal, and it's a bit of an. Also, I saw someone say Western decay is the thing. Okay, so how do you explain that though with China and Russia then? Because they're also dealing with absolutely like apocalyptic fertility rates. They're not in the West, so like this isn't the West. Like the West, the sick degeneracy of the West. This is a literal international issue. The only people who have a positive fertility rate right now are the African countries. That's it. Everyone else in the world has a negative fertility rate. It's below 2, like by a lot. Like everyone. Like there's no countries out there except for India and the African nations and Pakistan that I can think of off the top of my head that actually have a fertility rate greater than 2. So if this was an issue with the degeneracy and wicked, wayward ways of the West, then why in the world does every other country that's not in the West, including China, which is the leader of the anti-Western front, also have an insanely low fertility rate? It's not a point with the West. It's a point at the fact that there is something out there, like, and I would have to say this because the economic situation, at least if we were to take Chinese propaganda for its word, which is a lie, the economic situation in China is great. Why are no one having kids? No one's having kids nowhere, like literally anywhere in the world, except for in Africa and India and Pakistan. Nobody's having kids. So it's like, where in the world is what's going on with this? And like honestly, like I would say for America, it probably is economic issues, like Matthew was saying, but there has to be some sort of a greater overarching issue in the world that is producing this sort of an issue internationally. And I personally think, kind of like how there was how lead paint chips weren't really good for people's neurological health back in the day. I think it has something to do possibly with maybe per se microplastics or some other sort of a pollutant or issue like that may be affecting people negatively to where they don't really want to have kids. Because back in the day, hell or high water, whether someone was impoverished or they could hardly afford kids or they were living in squalor, people would have kids. And nowadays people don't. And it's a really big question to me as to why that be the case.
If you look around, though, the same problem is prevalent everywhere that the U.S. is experiencing. Because even in China, I'm not aware that the female stays at home. I think they're both working, the father and the mother. So you've got the same problem with that. Typically speaking, it would be best, and this is totally my opinion, it would be best if the mother raised the child and not let the child stay in daycare. I know that's controversial these days. Some people are like, well, women want careers too. I get that. But at the same time, though, I think that's part of the reason why people are deciding not to have kids. Because if the woman in the relationship is not able to stay at home with the kid, then the kid has to go to daycare. So that creates a new economic burden. It also creates a burden with raising the child as well, because now the child doesn't have a normal family upbringing in a household because the parents are absent most of the time because they're having to work 24/7. And that happens in China. That happens everywhere you're describing. The mother and the father are working. They're not there with the child, and the child's being raised by the state. Basically, they're being raised by the school system. In my opinion, and I'm watching the chat here to see if I'm getting any backlash on this because this seems to be controversial these days. It would be better if people went back to a family-oriented system. I'm not saying women give up their careers. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But we should go back to where, if you decide to have children, the mother can stay at home and help raise the child. The father can work. That's the most ideal scenario. But if the woman decides, okay, I don't really want that for my life, it's totally fine to pursue a career. But, the child in daycare is just not a good thing.
Well, I mean, like, technically, the whole reason the public education was brought into existence was because most men and women were working. It's kind of like a myth of the modern day that women just stayed at home in most families. I mean, like in upper middle class families, which hardly existed, and in upper class families or the high class families that rarely ever existed, women didn't work. But in most low-class families, which made up the bulk of the population throughout most of the 19th century and the early 20th century, the women and the men had to work because there was no way to support a household back then as well on a single income. Like that's like a myth of modern propaganda where, you know, someone takes a picture of like a dude who's working as a bowling ball cleaner at the bowling alley in the 50s, and they're like, he was able to support his whole family on one income. What happened? Where did this go? And it always was like this. It was not like that. The 50s was an enigma, but beyond that, life was hell for everyone, like if you want to call it that, like it was today economically, and everyone had to work. Like that's
Oh,
it.
also, by the way, I see people saying, well, Matt, why are you saying the mothers stay at home? Here's my thing. At least in my opinion, I would not want to be raised by my father solely. And also, I'm in a bit of a unique situation with that. So let's just take an average kid growing up. I would much rather be raised by my mother than my father, even if it was just a normal parents being raised. And it's no offense to like the fathers out there, but mothers are literally designed to raise the children. They know how to care for the child. They know how to meet the child's emotional needs better, at least in my opinion. And the fathers, they have their place. Like in my opinion, fathers are good at teaching their kids how to be responsible, how to have discipline, things like that. And the mother teaches that as well. But there's certain things, there's strengths and weaknesses to the mother and the father that come together to create a good upbringing for a child. And in my opinion, when it comes to the nurturing side, the mother's always going to have the upper hand when it comes to that. That's why I think personally. So that's why I say that, because I think the mother's better suited for a full-time situation with a kid, just because she knows how to operate that a lot better than the guy, at least in my opinion.
I would have to say, Matthew and my experiences growing up were the same, and I'd have to tell y'all that if we were raised solely by our dad, that would not turn out well at all. Just to be
But
completely.
just for the average one though, just for the average kid.
I think it's more of a mix. But I generally have to say that being raised more primarily by your mother is a more important thing. Like just to be entirely honest with you all, because I think because generally from what I understand, I believe that women, from what I've heard, are more so psychologically geared towards taking care of a child more so than a man would be. And that's just more so of a scientific thing, I believe, if I remember correctly from what I've heard, more so than just an opinion-based thing. Because I'll be honest with y'all, I don't really, because I have a lot of friends out there that are women, and a lot of them that are men. Well, actually, not a lot of them are women, but a lot of them that are men. And the straight up fact is, I could not really see a lot of the friends that I have that are dudes doing well raising kids. I just don't really think a lot of them are cut out for that sort of thing, doing that as the
It's
primary
tough.
caretaker. It's a tough
It's a
job. It's
tough
a very
job.
tough
Like
one.
it really is. Like I'm not saying like I want people to understand when I say it's tough, I mean it's tough. That's why I admire women out there that can manage that full time. Raising kids is a full-time job. Like that's not a joke. Like it takes like a lot of full-time work. In my opinion, I think like for example, when you have households where it's just one income supporting the family, the dad, in my opinion, has it easier than the mother that's raising the kids. That's just my opinion. The mother's got a hell of a lot of things on a 24/7 basis. The dad may be able to go to work and come back home and be able to sort of like at least tune out a little bit from coming back from work. The mother's on duty 24/7. That's a tough job, and it's a job that lasts for decades and it doesn't end. So I mean that's tough. Like I respect the women out there that take that job on full time. That is a doozy.
It's a very important one as well, because without that job being taken on pretty much full time, well, at least as much as it can be, there is no way for the population to continue to survive. Really, that's the truth of it. It's a very important job, one of the most important out there. Really, is the assurance of the next generation coming up to take the reins. But beyond that, let's see. I see some people saying, you know, it's a case by case basis. I'd have to say so. I mean, you know, there's a good argument I think that could be made out there that some men do good at raising kids. Me personally, though, speaking for myself, I don't really know if I would do well with raising a kid like entirely on my own, where I was the primary caretaker. And like a wife, like my wife hypothetically took a second like seat role to that. I don't think I would really do too well. Like, just to be entirely honest with y'all, and that would be my personal feelings on that, because when we were raised, we really weren't raised all too well with any kind of a guiding gentle hand. So, I generally think that would be a little bit more important to have for a kid growing up, is to be a lot more lenient and forgiving, instead of always having pretty much a whip cracked over you every single time anything happened at all, where you literally pretty much lived in fear most of your life growing up. So I generally think that would be a little bit more important for that. But anyways, with that, we do have to continue on getting some more questions. We've rabbit holed quite a while, and this is a issue that's pretty important these days, and nobody really has any clear-cut answers to. But we'll have to eventually see that hopefully someone does come up with a good answer to this, one way or the other. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ryan Cooling, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Ryan, for that $2 support, and we do appreciate that very much. And jumping right into our Morse code decoders of the night, we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Nora Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, and her royal fluffiness. They said the Morse says Thailand is still not messing around with Cambodia, and I wonder if a ceasefire could be forced. LLT LSA.
And ding, 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 ding. Shh. That's the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to say a huge congratulations to y'all in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps for continuing to get that correct time and time again, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to hear that Morse code message each and every single night. So a huge thanks to y'all so much once again for that. And with that, we are moving on to the next one. Also, I see some people weighing in on what I was saying right there about pretty much getting the whip most of my life growing up. I don't really want to get into a lot of details about that, because it's a really kind of a deep thing. But I'll have to just say really quickly to some folks who are saying things about you have good attitudes and morals outside of that. I would personally have to say I don't really attribute that much to my upbringing. I more so just attribute that to the fact that we had to kind of like figure that out, because nobody really told us a lot about that. So we're kind of just lucky, I suppose, if y'all consider that to be good attitude and morals that we have, because beyond that, there wasn't really a lot of teaching to be done on that. Like, there wasn't really a good example that we had growing up. Like, just to put it that way, like every time that someone shows up, you just feel fear that you're about to get lambasted or just screwed over in every way imaginable. Like that doesn't really do a lot to instill an attitude or morals into someone. That just makes you afraid for your life every time someone is hanging out around you, and it doesn't really do a lot. So we're kind of like a little bit.
I think if we were to follow some of our teachings, that we could be some very cruel bastards, actually. So I don't know. Like, it's just that's a tough one with that. I think if people could see the entire picture and see all the facts and information, it might be somewhat anomalous that we don't have certain traits that we might have been exposed to growing up. I don't know. That's just me, though. But I'm biased because I grew up in an environment like that. So I don't know. Maybe people from the outside would look at it and say, "Oh, it's not that, it's not this or whatever." But I don't know. I don't want to dig too deep into it. I don't want to get too personal. But
Yeah, and so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
Third to last question. We have to get some more than that. We hadn't even scratched one or two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, let's get some more then. We're on to the next one.
All right, so our first one here goes to Adventure Camping Zone, who said, was there any damage to the Kerch Bridge that y'all have heard about?
There was some damage. It wasn't attacked outright and destroyed. There was some damage a while ago, and I think we might have it documented here. There was an attack. It generally failed from what we know. But there was an attack before this one, I believe a week or two before, that actually ended up causing damage to one of the main arches of the road bridge, from what I understand. But we haven't really been able to follow along with if any repairs have been conducted on that part of the bridge or not, to be able to try and shore up the damage. So that's all I have at the moment on that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, really quickly, someone said, "Oh, wait a minute, you didn't go to church?" No. I'll like really quickly. I'll tell you all about that, because this might give a little bit of an idea to some people the kind of upbringing we had. We like went to church maybe like a handful of times. I can really count them all on one hand. But we would never end up going for long. And there was a really big sort of a battle that would happen all the time, endlessly, as we were growing up, as to whether really, at least in our particular instance, Christianity existed or not. And those battles were not at all civil. They were quite barbaric. And generally, we would pretty much be persecuted by one particular person as we were growing up for continuously just believing in our faith. Because it's stupid, and all this sort of stuff. And so it was never really an easy thing with that. It was like, for that reason and many others, we pretty much grew up through one element or another being persecuted most of our life growing up. So and that's every time we came home. So and then there was a million other things that were going on that I'm never going to get into until the day I die with really anyone outside of Matthew, because we went through it, but it was a little, it was not a normal sort of a thing at all. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next question here. This one goes to Mega, who said, does China figure in the peace talks at all for this conflict? And no, in the Thailand-Cambodia situation, Malaysia was selected as the country to mediate it, and that was selected by the two parties. So China was not chosen as the mediator, which is somewhat notable because if Cambodia really wanted their buddy China to jump into it, they could have insisted on it, but it looks like they both settled on Malaysia for some reason. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that as far as China being involved in the negotiations, it doesn't appear that they are. We don't even hear of any consular staff arriving in Kuala Lumpur. It appears to just be the United States leading the charge to create a ceasefire in Malaysia, and Malaysia was picked as a neutral third-party intermediary to host the talks. So that's about what we know at the moment right now on the foreign policy side of things. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Avari Mandabradas, who said, can we see a real size comparison if Thailand and Cambodia versus the USA and Europe? It might help folks to get the right spatial context for the combat area. So can we take a look?
We can. Let's see, the true size map. I believe that's what you're looking for. So let me go and get that really quickly, and let's go and get Thailand right here. So let me drag that over here to the US of A. So that's how big Thailand is compared to the United States. Actually, kind of a whopper, really. And then we get
Kind of bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, honestly, it's always like that, because these are very close to the equator, so they're close to true size. But when we take Cambodia and we click it in place, click right there. Let's see. They don't really line up too well right here. Anyways, this ought to be a rough approximate. So that is how big Thailand and Cambodia is. So right now, the battlefield is spanning all the way down from New Madrid, pretty much, right on the Tennessee border. We're kind of close to Paducah, actually. It's kind of close to there. Yeah, Paducah's about right there. So it spans about from, well, let's see. Maybe there's a better way I can do this. Let me just move it over here. Yeah, there we go. Click. There we go. Click, click, clicked in place. Perfect. So the battlefield pretty much goes all the way from Washington, D.C. in a semicircle shape all the way up to New York City. To give people a little bit of an idea here in the States how big this battlefield is at the moment. And the battlefield, if we were to place that over Europe, to give our European viewers kind of a understanding of how big this battlefield is. How about we do Paris to here? So click, 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 click. There we go. So this battlefield spans all the way from Paris to Luxembourg, just about approximately. So it's a sizable front line, several hundred miles. So that is I hope that puts it into scale how big this sort of a battle is at the moment. But I mean, just look at the size of Thailand. I mean, this is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, just the northern part of Thailand, not including the leg, is about the size of the whole of the UK.
It's really massive, honestly. It's much larger than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of crazy, really. It makes me wonder. If we took America, we put it down there over Southeast Asia. How big is? Oh, hold up. You know what? Now I know what I really want to know. How big is Vietnam compared to the U.S. of A? Take it, drag it, and drop it. We're gonna put it on the West Coast. Holy smokes! So Vietnam is actually quite sizable. It goes all the way from Spokane down to L.A. in vertical height.
It looks like it's probably about the size of California.
Probably so. It's pretty narrow. Let's see. But in width, at its widest part, it's as wide as Cincinnati to the Mississippi River. That's how wide it is in width on an American perspective at the widest. At the narrowest, it is literally as wide as Birmingham, Alabama at its narrowest width. So actually a little interesting with that. That's kind of crazy. So it actually quite a sizable country though. I will have to admit. Because let's see. This is 331,000. Let's see. Oh, it's 127,000 square miles in size. How about California? How big is California? So California is 163,000 square miles. So actually California in terms of land mass is a little bit bigger than Vietnam and just overall square mileage, but somewhat close. So Vietnam is about the size of California.
Interesting. You said it gets gas mileage?
Yeah, it gets pretty good gas mileage, although it is expensive, the gas mileage in California, though. In Thailand...
Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that? Like, for example, like Vietnam, why don't they just, like, cut it out, like along the border, like just cut the country out of the continent, and, like, put some, like, big, like, Mercury engines in the back, those big horsepower ones, and just, like, set sail.
Man, I don't know, honestly. Another thing that I've always thought, man, is that Vietnam really does need a Buc-ee's.
They need a boat.
Man, you can buy me a boat. Bro, if they sail out there into the South China Sea, though, China's going to invade them and take them. like if they sail out there, they're not going to last too long. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next question here goes to Danny B. And he said, if Russia or China gets involved in any of these conflicts, will the U.S. get involved, or are we full of empty threats?
I think if they got involved in the Thailand-Cambodia situation, I think we might be full of empty threats. But if they got involved against Ukraine or in the Middle East against the Israelis, I think we would directly get involved. It's kind of a case-by-case basis, though, I think. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the original Newfie, who said, also, there's news on YouTube about an alien spaceship that was detected. I don't know if anybody else heard about that yet. And I heard about it. It's allegedly some spaceship that's lined up, and it's gonna come around in November, because apparently they have a delay. They had to schedule it in, and apparently they were too busy in July, August, and September, October too. So they said they'll have to hold off on the invasion until November. So it pissed some people off. Some people were not happy about the scheduling conflict at all, but November's the best we can ask for, I think. So I think we're going to have to hold off. But that's coming out of a study, believe it or not. So I'm not sure what the hell that's about. It sounds crazy to me. But, I think Harvard was the one that put that out, or Harvard, a Harvard individual that was from Harvard or something like that. So I don't know. Like, these distractions right here are a little bit weird. But Enforcer, tell us what you think.
I think that thing is a hoax. I think it's a straight up fabrication, honestly. Because it's like, if it's a spacecraft, why don't they show us the picture they have of it to confirm it? They don't. And so it's like, well, how do we know it's even that? I think it's a load of bullshit, actually. Let me go pull up the Harvard spaceship thing. Harvard spaceship. The Harvard spaceship. Because these people in Harvard, they're smart, but they're not that smart. Let's see. Let me see here. So this appears to be the thing that's the issue. It's this rock.
Are you sure it's that one? Because I thought it was a different one that they pointed out this time.
That's
the old one. They said that doo-doo log right there was they said that like a year ago or something. Now there's a new one that's like, they're saying it's like teed up to come around. I think this might be it right here.
Could Comet 3I Atlas be a piece of alien technology? The question that might sound straight out of a sci-fi movie is now being brought to the front of the space table by Abraham Loeb, the Barrett Professor of Science and Institute Director at Harvard. I don't think so.
What makes them think it's an alien ship? It's just like it's a comet. It looks like it could have some alien tech. It's like, do we have any more detail other than that?
It's unnatural in size. It doesn't have outgassing. It's retrograde yet elliptic orbital plane. It's like, couldn't this just be some sort of a one of a kind
anomaly?
Comet? Yeah, it's like, it doesn't have to be an alien spacecraft. This is like saying, oh, like every car, it's red, but this one's gray. Could it be the KGB? It's like, no, it might just be a gray car. It's like, maybe a lot of people don't like the color gray. I don't know. But
I'm going to guess that this spacecraft doesn't have any, on unforeseen lists on it or something like that. I'm going to assume it doesn't have any list on board.
Oh my God, it's the return of Epstein. Oh my
Oh
God.
no, they're
Oh
bringing the
no.
proof. Oh no,
Oh
they're going to zap that one out
no.
of the sky quick. Get that one out of here. I'll tell you
Dude.
what, he's going to have to go. Reschedule 10 years away.
Dude, they're gonna come down from the spacecraft, and Stephen Hawkins is gonna come out. He's gonna be like, "I really did get with those midgets." It's gonna be like, "Oh my God, oh no, oh man, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be absolutely terrible." But that's it, folks. It's a spacecraft carrying let's see, Stephen Hawking's, Epstein, and a couple of other people. They're coming back. They're gonna tell the truth. It's happening. It's coming. It's coming around. Elvis is returning with it. Tupac's coming back.
Next thing you know, man, it's gonna be the phone. It's gonna be ring, 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 ring. Hey, is this The Rock? Yeah. You're going to reschedule for 10 years from now. You're not coming in November. I'm sorry. Hang the phone up.
Ah man. Oh jeez. But dude, like you're gonna hear like that breathing, like that Darth Vader breathing, and then someone's gonna be like, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm Darth Epstein." Oh my God! Like, oh no! Hey, there's no list. You don't understand. I am the list. No, like, bro, let's give it.
You can reschedule your arrival here at the United States, and you can go right back to the star you came from, and you can take that doo-doo log friend of yours back with you too. We don't want him either.
He is a illegal alien. Literally, he's got to go back. Like he cannot stay here. He did not come through a legal port of entry. We do not have one. He needs to go. He's a literal illegal alien. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I'd have to say, folks, I think the whole spacecraft thing is a load of BS. I'm just going to be entirely honest with y'all. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. Best it can. Best to suppose. And I hope y'all got a laugh out of that. And oh my goodness, someone said, "I'm your Diddy." Oh, that was good. That was good. Like, that was actually good. Oh, dang. But anyways, I gotta tell you, folks, y'all are coming up with some good ones in the chat. I want to read them off and laugh at them, but we can't because YouTube might not like it. So,
can we see the doo-doo log spacecraft again? Can we see that?
Let's
see. I tell you, man, that looks so bad. Like, whoever came up with that rendering right there, it's like, could y'all have like tried to like shade it to where it didn't look like it was like, something that belonged in the toilet or something?
The turd.
Look at that thing, man. Just like, this is what we're worried about. They said the spacecraft might be among us. It's like, yeah, it's in your nearest Toto.
Bro, this is in the sewer, like down near the way.
I tell you what,
like a water
right
treatment
here is
plant.
going down to the sewer treatment plant.
Man, oh my God.
Throw some chlorine on this thing right here. It'll disappear like it was never there.
Oh my God, no way. Oh my God. Look. Wait, have they been on this shit before? Like, I mean, like, not just this year?
I don't know. Like, honestly, I think it was last year.
Oh, wait a minute, hold up. Has Earth been visited by an alien spaceship? Hold up, let me go.
And that one looks even worse, man. This photo is even worse right here. It's even more brown.
Hold up. So, I just gotta say really quickly, the guy who's saying that this is a spaceship arriving to Earth did this same shit in 2021. This article here that I just clicked on was from February 18th of 2021.
It's the same guy?
It's the same guy. Again, like he said it in 2021. So last time he wasn't right because nothing showed up. I'm assuming he's not right this time because nothing's going to show up. We are not going to get doo-doo shit pea head arriving here to Earth on the shit capsule, the USS Shitterprise. It's not happening. Like, it's not happening. This ain't showing up. Like, this is a comet.
I feel like this is like a troll or something like that. Like, the photo of it looking like a turd, also the same guy saying it twice in a row. It feels like we're being trolled or something. Oh my God, man, that one looks even... They're getting worse, like, the more you're clicking on, man. This one looks terrible.
These are the voyages of the USS Shitterprise. Our main mission, to make clickbait in the news. Oh my God. Bro, they're getting worse.
Oh my God, what the hell?
That is literally a log in a toilet. Bro, dude. These, like, this is some giant hoax or something like that. It is. It has to be. Because there is no way that people are taking this seriously. And the fact that this guy did this 4 years ago in 2021. this isn't real. Like, this isn't happening. I don't even know why people are putting any credit into this. So, yeah. What the hell is this?
He said believes there's an alien. He didn't say there was an alien amongst us. He said an alien spaceship.
Alien spaceship Among Us. Bro, it's the video game Among Us.
Also, why is the alien looking like he's trapped behind a wall? It's like, dude, just like what the hell is this?
Bro,
like, was he trapped or something? Let him out.
Bro, this guy looks like he is caught in the shower and he's like pressing on the glass and he's like, give me a towel. I don't have a towel. Like, bro, that's what that alien is doing. He's like, oh, give me a towel, man. Please.
That's how I'll be looking in the pizza joint when they're cooking the pizza up still and it's not quite ready. I'll be leaning on the glass just like that.
Bruh, that's how I'd be looking out the window at all the folks you know who are outside the house.
Huh?
Yeah, that one didn't make sense. I was trying to figure out where to go with it, and the first joke I was like, yeah, that's not gonna be good. Like I was like, I gotta quickly change it. So then I changed
that one totally lost me. I was like lost as hell on that one.
Man, bruh. Let's see what other goofy pictures. The USSR 2. It's
what's that have to do with the alien spaceship? That's not alien. That's history.
This is some kind of a movie too. It was like an old movie of some type. But oh, look at this. Oh my God, these photoshops are terrible. Actually,
They could at least made the spaceship a little smaller, where it was a little bit more believable instead of it taking up the whole state. Oh, look, they're trying to zap some intelligence in there.
Look, it's the damn Nazi UFO. You know, the one that looks goofy, and it's sucking up all of the Taco Bells in the middle of the garden. I don't know. Like, it's like Pentagon UFO chief says alien mothership in our solar system possible. So we have a UFO
Man,
chief.
that's like the representative of like the budget or something. Like just the aliens show up and suck all the money out of the Pentagon. Nobody's sure where it went, and they sort of take off with it.
Dude, they sat there and said the aliens arrived at the Pentagon and they said, bring me to your local Domino's and your local bar. like and insert bar type. We need to see these now. It's like, bro, they ain't taking them nowhere. Like they staying where they at. The Photoshop on these is terrible though. Look at this.
You know, there was actually, I'm not sure if many people know this. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this. No, I'm just joking. But, you know, there's actually a time where the government encouraged UFO propaganda. I think they still probably do it, is my guess. They encouraged the UFO narrative because that was a good smokescreen for our top secret projects. Like, for example, when we were testing the U-2 out at Area 51 when we were developing it, everybody was encouraging, oh, yeah, it's UFOs. So that way the people would just accept that as the theory. Oh, it's just a UFO. It's like aliens and stuff. It was good fodder for people to chew on and stuff. So that way they wouldn't focus on the real project, which was all these secret projects going on at Nellis. So they got off the whole beaten path.
Also, folks, one other thing, adding on to that, considering that aliens would be looking for intelligent life, don't y'all think they'd skip this place?
Well, I mean, that might be all they got.
Nah, they got better out there. They'll keep looking. Like they'll keep looking. So I just got to be honest with y'all, folks. I don't think we're the intelligent life that they're looking for. And also, what if we're really scary to them? You know, like what if we are actually horrific to aliens, like to look at, like we're like nightmare fuel to them? What if we are? Like, have y'all ever thought about that? Like, you know, like maybe we're scared of them, but maybe they're more scared of what we look like. Maybe the diseases that exist here on Earth are so bad it would wipe them out if they ever showed up and came in contact with us. Or maybe the other way around. You know,
maybe so. Also, by the way, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but speaking of Area 51 and stuff like that, also, by the way, Area 51 serves as like a proving ground for like contractors and stuff. So, for example, when we hire contractors in the United States to develop classified aircraft projects, they'll typically take stuff out there to go test it. So all the people that are always like, oh, you know, they've got the UFOs and the aliens out there at Area 51, and people love to go up to the gate and stuff around like the perimeter, and they like to go like take photos and videos of it. It's like all you're doing is you're going out there and harassing the security people that are like paid to like guard the place. Those security people are contractors too, by the way. They're not military. And it's basically you're going out there and harassing them while they're trying to test our new secret aircraft projects. Basically, it's like you're not finding any UFOs out there. There's not ET. That's all just urban myth. There's just a bunch of secret classified projects we're trying to prove and also fly out there to make sure they work properly. And the people just show up and it's turned into a tourist attraction, basically. But what I was going to say though was this. Lockheed Martin announced yesterday that they took a pretty big loss, actually. Let's see here. The profit dove by 80% at Lockheed, according to the Reuters article, on a $1.6 billion charge. And they said they couldn't say why. That was their explanation. They said, well, it's classified.
Man, the government flag project ended up taking. Who would have thought? Like, honestly. But man, I gotta say. Also, Quantum Fighter got a little angry about us dissing on Hawkins. Look, Hawkins actually was, like, from what we know, he actually was allegedly at the island. Like, they were like, he would apparently go there. And, like, I'm not even kidding. This is what they said, and this is just like the running story. He'd apparently go there, and he'd have midgets, like real midgets, do complex math equations while standing on stools because for some reason he got a kick out of it or he got his rocks off to it or something. I don't know, but that's what they said. And so I remember hearing that. Don't you remember hearing that, Matthew? You're like, what the hell? Like, and like, that's hard to forget.
I don't remember that.
I remember that, and I was like, what the hell? And I was like, is that like legit? And no one ever came out and was like, nope, that's not true. So I was like, I guess that was a legit story. Like, I don't know. Like,
but can you? But I don't mean to jump back off topic, but can tell me this because I'm curious. What the hell do y'all think Lockheed Martin is working on? That they apparently had a $950 million charge that they couldn't even explain what it was being used on. That's almost $1 billion that they're spending on some project that either has run into difficulty, I would assume, or something. I don't know what the deal is. Obviously, we'll never know because it's something that's classified. They can't tell us. But whatever they're working on now, is it the NGAD, the next generation air fighter, basically, or what is it that they're working on that's causing such a huge drain in capital like that?
oh, bro, oh, buddy, dude, you don't give History Channel ideas, dude. They're gonna come out with a, what in the world was this 1 billion charge for? Was it for something mundane like new coffee cups, or was it for something more sinister? Find out after the break. And then they come back after the break, and then they go, what was this secret $1 billion charge? Was it maybe to buy more styrofoam for their coffee cups, or was it for something more sinister? This is gonna take us to Colorado, where the fields are flat and the cows graze. And then they go to a farmer, and he's like, honestly, one of them got sick one time and threw up a little. Could it have been this secret government project causing this cow to vomit? Or could it have been something more mundane? Find out after the break. And they keep that going for like 30 minutes until the episode ends inconclusively. And they're like, we'll never know what that $1 billion was spent on. It's like wasting 30 minutes of your time to do it.
Yeah. Me personally, speculating seriously on it, I think the project they're probably working on, because obviously I think we have a lot of projects probably in the works right now from what we've been told by the government, is probably the next generation fighter they're working on. It could be maybe a drone equipment of some sort that goes along with fighter jets. That could be it as well. It could be maybe the successor to Blackbird. I'm not sure how much of a priority that really is, though, because that doesn't seem to be a huge top priority right now for the use case of that aircraft. But I'm not really sure what the hell it could be. It would be nice to know. Obviously, we can't know, though, because if somebody knows it, they can leak it to China, and that wouldn't be any good. But I'd be curious to know what it turns out to be.
I'd be curious to know as well. We might not ever know in our lifetime, because usually they keep like stuff classified for like 80 to 100 years. But with that in mind, it is time for us to move on to the next one. Also, Matthew, did we get a super chat at some point from Danny B?
Yes, that's what we're about to jump into. And Danny put in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Danny B, for that support. And we do appreciate that. And of course, I don't know why, but YouTube still has the super chat feature available tonight. But nonetheless, Danny, thank you very much for that generosity and for finding a way to throw us a super chat anyway. He said, I know it's a fundraiser, but I want to send y'all some love. And everyone in the LSA community appreciate y'all. And thank you very much, Danny. He said, I did donate as well, but I forgot to post my name, so it was anonymous and LLT LSA.
Dagnabbit. Well, we thank you incredibly for the support, Danny B. I hate that you didn't get to have your name out there for us to call out. But beyond that, long live the Lee Spring Army. And I gotta say, thank you so much for the kind words and supporting the channel even tonight. We always like for people to support the fundraiser, but since people can work that loophole right now to support the channel on a Sunday fundraiser night, we're still greatly appreciative to y'all for going out of your way to support the channel and help it to keep on running. So a big thanks to y'all so much once again, and a big thanks to you, Danny B, massively for your support. And also, thank you for throwing out some kind words to the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
Also, by the way, I see a lot of people saying the SR-72 is out. It's a prototype. You aren't talking about the Dark Star, are you? Because I don't think the Dark Star is a legit aircraft. Let me go double check.
It's not real.
Yeah, you are talking about the Dark Star. I think that's what's showing up. I don't think the Dark Star. Because now here's my thing. Now, do I believe for a second that that they made a real mock-up of the Dark Star for just the movie? I personally don't buy that. I think that might have been a real prototype for an aircraft that got turned into a movie prop, at least in my personal opinion, but that's just my speculation. But SR-72, that's technically a surveillance aircraft, I believe, reconnaissance. So I don't know if that's the priority right now, because we have satellites that achieve that job. Back when the SR-71 was operating, we needed to actually get pictures of things from that aircraft. But today we have very advanced satellites, so I'm not sure if that would be a top priority for development. It's probably more likely an NGAD, probably, at least to me.
I would have to say most likely so, at least in my opinion. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who said, "Do y'all think we need to have ground forces in Yemen?"
I'd say yes, but Matthew would say no. But I'd say yes. So I hope that answers the question. Well, I had to do a little double roundabout there. But with that, hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right. And also, I see a lot of people saying they tell us the truth through movies. I'll be honest with you, the moment I saw that Dark Star mock up in real life and saw the whole thing was actually built properly, I'm like, now how much would this cost to build as a movie prop? And tell me that that wouldn't eat up the entire movie budget, or at least it would seem like it would eat up the whole movie budget. And now they show off the Dark Star at, like, I think air shows or something, like not flying around, but they show it on the ground, like sitting there. And I'm like, that looks like a legit real life mock up of an aircraft that they're just calling a movie prop. Like, that's just me though. But moving on to our next question, this one goes to David Tablet, who said, "Is there any chance of enlisting Egypt in handling the Houthis, since they have a vested interest in Red Sea freedom of navigation?"
Possibly, but honestly, I wouldn't want the Egyptians dealing with it because they're fairly corrupt as a government and a military. So if anyone should be dealing with it, I feel like it should be someone with less corruption than the Egyptians. So while they could and they do have a vested interest, I don't really think they're a great candidate to go into Yemen because knowing the Egyptian government and the military, they'd go into Yemen and then they'd be trying to strike a deal with the Houthis to buy their guns from them or something crazy like that. So me personally, I would say probably not. So with that, I hope that has addressed that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is none other than TS, who said, "Prior to the planting of the landmine by the Cambodians, was there an agreement or understanding of no activities like this? And was it an AT mine or an APERS?"
It was an anti-personnel mine, from what we understand, and generally you don't have to have a pre-existing understanding that you don't cross someone's border and plant a landmine on the other side. That's generally understood, because to cross a country's border, you have to have express permission, and the Cambodians did not have express permission to cross the border or to plant a landmine on a footpath for that soldiers were going to be walking down. So while they didn't have an express written agreement about that, that's generally underlying or understood in international law that you don't cross another country's border and then not only do that, but plant a landmine on a footpath used by soldiers on patrol or any trafficked area. So, I hope that addresses that the best I can, because while they didn't have a written agreement on that, that's just like a default understood sort of a thing that you don't do. And so with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. We had a peak viewership tonight of a whopping 10.8 thousand people, and 76,000 people have been here and watched the stream before it ended. We're entirely honored and appreciative of each and every one of y'all for being here tonight and watching this channel and enjoying it. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will most likely see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24, well, actually, not 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We will actually see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 48 hours of news from around the world. But if there's enough news to make a short war video in the middle of the day for, y'all will actually be seeing Enforcer Matt tomorrow for that video. And so, I also have to give a huge shout out for all of y'all raising a whopping $3,195 on the fundraiser. The fundraiser actually just rounded out about a minute ago, and I gotta congratulate y'all once again massively for that, because that is absolutely incredible and amazing to see. And so with that, we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 48 hours of the news. And with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, long live the Republic, and long live the LSA.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for another whopping successful fundraiser tonight with $3,200 raised, and that is fantastic to see you yet again, and thank you all very much once again for helping to make that possible. And of course, a big shout out to all the viewers that were here tonight, and we will see you all tomorrow on the Short War video if there is enough news to cover on that video, and also, of course, on Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next night of War News streaming. But with that, thank you all once again, and Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.